Sleepy town settling for the night, where every lawn is tailored just right. And it's about time that the back porch light comes on. At that house down the street, at that house on Magnolia Street.
Hello guys, I'm Justina.
I'm Kristina.
Welcome to Magnolia Street, your one and only musically inspired practical magic fandom podcast.
Every week we deep dive on different aspects of the books and the film, as well as treat your ears to our very own original practical magic inspired music.
Yes, this week we're joining the murder and following the crows. But first, we have some practical magic updates to get you guys through the week, because I know you've been waiting all week for more juice, but I don't know, I'm having a feeling this might be the end of the juicy bits for a while, because we're going to talk about it.
But we're going to have like official trailers drop.
That's right.
They'll be sharing press conferences and speaking, I'm sure, about their experience to market.
Right.
Oh, look who snuck in.
Oh, which one's that?
That's Odin. Odin is hot.
Hi, Odin. So cute. First things first, we have more Joey King and Maisie Williams shenanigans, right? Where last week we were able to show you guys some still images from their Instagram, from Joey's Instagram specifically. And then Kristina discovered that Joey and Maisie both have TikToks, and they seem like they have posted a video from that night of drunken debauchery in the wigs with the karaoke or whatever they were doing, as well as the morning after. They looked like they were hurting pretty bad. They might have been hungover in that one. What do you think?
But I love that Joey in this is holding a cigarette, not condoning the smoking, but it's very Jillian coded. And I don't know if you remember, Justina, but you were commenting in those photos. You said, oh my gosh, they're going to feel that the next day. And it really looks like they are. So we have them dancing to the same song in both. It's the Sabrina Carpenter song. That evening, they're dancing on the street. People are passing them. They don't even know who they are. And then the next morning, our girls are just looking like they need the mint from the garden. Do they not?
They need some hair of the dog, some Bloody Marys, right? Maisie doesn't look that bad in the hungover video, but Joey looks like she's hurting.
Yes.
She doesn't even have the oomph or the wherewithal to want to even do this dance. She's just like, whatever. Right?
Not even opening her eyes. Correct.
Yeah, she's sleepy girl in that picture. Oh yeah, Joey King posted another picture, I guess from that Coldplay concert, because it looks like they're wearing the same things. And it's just like her and Sandra just vibing out, having a good time at that concert. And her caption said, Mamacita. She might very well be Kylie, right? She's calling Sally her mama.
Yes. I didn't write anything for these because I think they speak for themselves. We have more AI posters.
So that was very funny. It's very serious.
It's not bad.
It looks more like maybe what we should be expecting from this one. It's not overly sorcerous, which is what we've been getting from most of these AI posters, which is nice.
Right. This is what we want. I think nice and practical, very simple. And it's hearkening back to the original poster with the candles and like the black and yellow glowing gold, So it's very reminiscent. So good job on this, whoever created it.
Yeah, I agree. And then the one below that, I saw this one and I was like, okay, this one looks like some kind of like witchy prep school. And like maybe Sally and Jillian look like they should be like professors of this prep school.
This is definitely American Horror Story season 3.
Coven, yeah.
But this girl in the middle is giving some young Sandra Bullock vibes to me.
Definitely. It's also like giving kind of like Pretty Little Liars, something that you would see on preteen drama channels. I don't know.
Yeah, the CW again. We're getting getting that.
Yeah,
the hair is perfect. The makeup is not a blemish in sight on these young women. Bless. It must be that black soap. We also had and are continuing to have some very cool interactions with Stephen Alish, the production designer who worked on Practical Magic, the first film with Robin Sandifer. This week, he liked and commented a lot of our images we tagged him in, and Justina sent me a screenshot of like 3 things in a row and said, "Are you fangirling or what?" And I really was, and I still am. I had tagged him in one of a detailed blueprint of the Owens house that somebody else had made that we have to date, and I asked him if it was accurate, especially there's like a passage that leads to the back door between the kitchen and living room area, and he said that in that image it is very accurate, except for how they have the kitchen table drawn out. It wasn't a table where the girls have the midnight margaritas. It was like a built-in bench with a table there. But he said this is pretty accurate, which is awesome. And since we have befriended him, he actually posted a few carousel pictures with his watercolors and sketches. And the first one we've seen in circulation, very stylized, but we've never, I don't think, have heard his words in working on this project. So I wanted to share what he put in the description. So he says, some drawings I recently did for Practical Magic, early sketches, and planning for the home we designed and oversaw construction in 1998. A real labor of love. That project, pre-client, pre-budget, pre-anything. Just a wide open opportunity to build a big, juicy, beautiful house for the director Griffin Dunn, who enthusiastically ate it up and was delighted with it as it was built and filmed with antiques, murals, and art, which Justina and I did a big episode on just the portraits in the house.
Maybe if we talk to him, maybe he can give us like, remember we were like going through the film and picking out the ones that we didn't know what their source was. Maybe he can tell us what those are.
I would love that. Yes, absolutely. I think he could be the source. He says, and ultimately the actors' endless story and collaboration along the way. Film was sometimes fun, sometimes stressful. It depended on the crew and the top brass and cast. On this one was wonderful and never abusive, which sometimes happens being on an island, drawing plans in an art department cabin next to the site right on the sea. So he was drawing these plans in the Maria's cabin that they built. That was their like art department. So he says seeing killer whales, bald eagles, and walking the path along the cliff to the job site where hundreds of carpenters, scenics, and greensmen were waiting for new drawings every morning had to be one of the best experiences of my life. I was only 32.
Oh my God, he was younger than we
Both
are
of
now.
us.
Yeah.
Wild. He says, I did some of my best work then, trying to impress Robin, who is ultimately the one responsible for overseeing all the visuals. I figured, get this, I figured if I drew beautiful plans, details, and elevations, and ran the crew like a camp, I could prove I was worthy to be her husband and potentially contribute in a great cause for providing for us building Roman and Williams, which we conjured up during the project that worked out well, thank God, for the power and spell of the pencil.
Yo, so in essence, it's also a love story, which is so sweet.
I know, 32, and just him trying to woo her and win her over with his art of this beautiful Victorian seaside mansion.
That is so Renaissance of him.
I love it.
Right? To woo somebody with your art. Who does that anymore?
Steven! Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
So then underneath, someone commented saying, your work on the film is a masterpiece on its own. Will you be involved in the sequel too? And he replied to them saying, I don't think so. I do not think movies go through all the expense and trouble they used to go through. So my guess is mostly digital sets, green screens. Then I commented, we know more now, but this days ago, there was so much that happened. So I commented, I said, I think a hefty GoFundMe for a private reconstruction won't be an issue for this fandom. And he replied, ha ha ha, $1 a fan then.
Let's go.
I said, consider
Do
it
it.
done, Steven. So it sounds like he's down. I would be 100% on board with starting a GoFundMe for this. I know we joke about it, but it's becoming less and less of a joke the more we talk about it.
My question is, like, he said, oh, I'm glad they still have the plans. So does that mean that the WB owns the plans, and is anybody else prohibited from building that house? house?
I can't see how they would trademark that. I mean, you can tweak little things here and there. That is a question we'll have to put on our list when we speak to him, because I would love that.
Also, the other question is, okay, so anybody can rebuild that house if they wanted to, but probably for personal use, like if you wanted to live there. But if we wanted to make it like a Airbnb or some kind of like recording studio that generates income, now it's a business. So now is the WB gonna be like, give me my money,
I don't know.
Or here's a cease and desist.
My question is, because we're going to get to some of the comments later about the house and reconstruction. Somebody was like, keep Barbara Streisand away from this. Why hasn't anybody who offered money for the original house, why hasn't anybody built it? Is that the reason? Is it because it's protected by the WB?
Or they don't have
the money to build this house.
Right, or they don't have the plans. I guess Stephen Alish doesn't even have the plans because he's like, oh, I guess the WB still has the plans. So I guess he didn't even have them anymore.
There's one image in particular I want to talk about. This blew my mind. This was the first time I had ever seen a sketch or design of the back of the house. Okay, let me get my diorama. Okay.
By the way, he liked your diorama meme on our Instagram.
So this is just a recreation, a fan recreation, as opposed to what he actually projected for the design of the back of this house. So we don't get any details of what it looks like in the film. It never gets shown, but I was pleasantly surprised to see this. So I commented that we cannot get over the production design for this film. And as artists and architect fiends, your work just feeds our soul. And then I commented again after I saw this picture of the back of the house. I said, oh my God, I don't think most people know that there's a shed dormer window there or that stunning arched gable. So beautiful. And we never got to see it. So this feeds into our theory, I think, that this house in his mind maybe was added onto over the decades, because seeing this image is a cool validation of that theory. So I just want to talk about the little dorm, that shed dormer at the top, that long, low roof projection over the small window, giving the attic some light. Those shed dormers show up in colonial revival and craftsman era houses late to early 20th century, but they're especially associated with early 20th century expansions when attics were being converted into more usable rooms. So it doesn't really sit comfortably in this high style Victorian Queen Anne roofline, which usually favors those steep pitch gables, the turrets, the decorative dormers. This shed dormer this was probably like a later practical addition rather than in that Victorian era design. And like the shed dormer feels like a 20th century retrofit, maybe like this attic expansion could have taken place in like 1910 through 1930. And it's a practical way to squeeze more light into that headspace. Below that, we get that beautiful little arch over that window. That's probably at the top of the stairs on the second floor where the landing is, like where we get in the book, it's like the girls would sit in the window landing and read and the green light would filter through. So this curved gable pops up in shingle style architecture, and that's 1880 to 1900. So that is Victorian era, but it's more of a Dutch revival work here. This shingle style in particular plays with that fluid curved roofline, and it's often like a more softer counterpoint to those busy Queen Anne angles. It's really the only gentle little curve we see here, right? And this kind of feature does feel Victorian adjacent, but less gingerbread Queen Anne and more coastal, much more like Cape Cod, experimenting with that shingle style, that overlapping time with the Queen Anne. And it reads both as like theatrical and forward looking, for the 1890s here. So I thought this is just such a beautiful rendition. I didn't even talk about the far left gable with the diagonal supports. That is in its own little specific era. What do you think of this back?
This is amazing. I don't remember seeing this angle of the blueprints. Is this what he posted like recently?
Yes, ma'am.
Amazing. Okay. Yeah. So he's probably got this in a portfolio under lock and key somewhere. And like, it wasn't relevant for many years because, that was in the 90s and it was kind of a cult classic. It wasn't like huge at the box office. So it's not like people were like dying to see these plans. I mean, we were like, the core fan base was, but now it's relevant again because they're doing the second movie. So now I guess he feels like it's appropriate. It's the appropriate time to release little drip feeds.
Dig into
to
the
us.
vault.
Exactly. And also back then social media didn't exist. So like there wasn't really a way for him to get these out to the masses. I mean, people had personal blogs and stuff, but like, Instagram, things are so easily shareable and, digestible and recyclable. So it's nice that he's finally feeling the need to give these cool.
Yes, we have more for you guys, more updates, but just two other little cool insights from Steven was somebody commented, how did you have this in your head with the confidence to draw it out at that age? Remember, he was 32. Was the surf breaks in front of the Hearst Castle where you could study the nutty deviations of California classic architecture while waiting for an amazing set? So maybe he's a surfer? He replied, haha, well, you're right to ask that question. I think the ability to detail a house like this is from doing so many walking tours in the great houses of Pasadena when I was in my 20s. The Victorians, green and green, and to be honest, all the bungalows I lived in Los Angeles over the years, from deco to Spanish to craftsman. I just couldn't get enough of all of it as I grew up and saw the Psy arc influence in mini malls and new condos. It was like the birth of the Joker. And I made a promise to myself to be opposed to distillation and abstraction. And yes, a concrete bank to skate or neglected, uncrowded wave was my other passion. So that's kind of cool to learn too.
Yeah, and then on Thursday morning, after we kind of had this exchange with him, just where we were elated, we got this other little surprise.
Surprise.
You actually got this little nugget because I was asleep. I was asleep when this happened. So I woke up to a text from you, Kristina. I was so confused. Okay, so you got this nugget from our listener, Scott J. So thank you to Scott J for sending this over to us, who says, "Hey witches, love the podcast. I thought you'd like to see this photo that I came across on Twitter while we were looking for Practical Magic updates. Hopefully this should put some concerns to rest." So then he sent us that a direct link to the Wizarding World Directs, I guess their Twitter, and that post says, aerial photo of the King's Cross set for the Harry Potter TV series located adjacent to the Practical Magic 2 set. Okay, now you see that little on the right hand side, the aerial view, that the Practical Magic house? You see it? When I saw this, I thought that was the Lego house.
And you're like, I don't get it.
And I thought that was a Lego house, and somebody had made like their own like miniature, like in Beetlejuice, how Adam makes that whole like miniature world and like his attic on like a tabletop. I thought that's what this was, and I was like, what do you mean? How do you know we have the house? I don't get it. But that's like somebody did like a miniature of this. I'm not computing. My brain was still asleep, okay, when I saw this.
You scared me because I was like, what? Is this not, am I looking at this incorrectly?
It took me a few minutes to gather what exactly was going on, and then I saw like, oh, okay, now I'm getting it. It's a backlot, an aerial view of the backlot. So we had some comments that were asking, is this legit? Is this a legit photo? Is this a legit post? So I did a little digging because, context. I wanted to know if this was for real or if this was like some kind of like random offbeat fan account that's just making shit up, because you never know with AI nowadays. So like I wanted validation that this was in fact legit. So I was like, I asked Google, who owns Wizarding World Direct's Twitter account? And this is actually a legit account run by Wizarding World Digital, which is a partnership between J.K. Rowling's team, Pottermore, and Warner Brothers Discovery. So yes, this is an actual official account with direct ties to the WB. So I'm like, okay, I think this is legit enough to answer some people. So although they were showing us the Harry Potter sets and stuff, they inadvertently showed us that the Practical Magic Owens house shell has in fact been rebuilt, although not on location on that gorgeous bluff that, we were wishing for on Whidbey Island. And also, if you notice, look at that blue perimeter surrounding the house. That is a backdrop screen of the New England seascape on that bluff. That's a backdrop of what they would see from that bluff. Who knows what the hell kind of movie magic they're gonna do to make that look real, because as of right now, obviously that looks like a backdrop.
Yes, I think they'll be able to do some smoothing, but like it's so interesting, it's so weird and otherworldly otherworldly to see this little skid steer moving shit around, and the what where Jimmy was buried, this thing they have covered up. Maybe they're not done constructing it yet. That white pergola is covered, and how do they get trees like this? Just massive 3-story trees. Movie magic is incredible.
It really is. And like the fact that we're seeing it from a bird's eye view, no pun intended, because that's our topic for today.
Nice.
We're seeing what is actually around it. And it looks like a lot of like, what do they call those like things, those train
they're like trailer cars.
Train cars. Yeah. It's just like, random stuff. I don't know if that is for a film that they're working on, or
I think that's like and crew, and where they would keep all of the material.
So you think it's like storage more so?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting how, I've never seen an aerial view of a backlot, but that's amazing how they're able to cram in all these little different worlds of all these projects that they're simultaneously working on, and practical magic is just right in the mix there. And I don't know if the WB or the wizarding world was, I don't think that was their intention to leak the practical magic build on the backlot, but they did, and here we are. And Stephen Alish had some additional things to say about that after we had that exchange with him. So why don't you tell us about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So actually, Melancholy Mermaid says they're probably holding up those trailers are holding up the backdrop.
Oh, that's a good. Okay. Yes. Yes, we could see it along the side there. Good observation. I would have never picked that out. I'm like, why would there be train cars around the whole thing? But that would make sense that they had to stack those, something to be big enough to get that height, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Steven commented on that. And this was right after we heard, he's not going to be working on it. They'll probably use backup footage or green screens. But he said, oh, wow, thank God they saved the blueprints. So they do have them, yeah. And we say never throw anything away, but part of it kind of sits funny. Part of it doesn't sit right without you on the job, I said. He replied, oh, I'm sure it's going well. The drawings in a set of about 100 sheets, and they're sort of a spell book to follow. They saved a lot of things in a big warehouse all the time. Hopefully it can be dusted off and used again. I said, we love that. I cannot imagine how big these storage facilities are because of how many movies have come and gone, and don't throw anything away. They just kept everything,
Right. Yeah, because if you think about it, there's always a chance of there being a sequel of something, and they probably have to hold on to that stuff because you never know. They might need it again, right?
But this got a lot of traffic. This post took off. So what did people have to say about it, Jess?
Some people were very disappointed. They said, seriously, not in the same place. Yeah, I know. It is a bummer, but some people were excited. We have an, oh my God. And then this person, Ritual Remedies, said, literally, our DM thread was sizzling over this topic. In the words of dear Aunt Jet, most excellent. Yeah, Sally Owens Verbena says, oh my God, I feel so happy. And then we have some more on this side. Yay, so exciting. Do you think they'll keep it up for tours or demolish it after the first one? And that's a good point. I know if you go to the backlot on, I think it's in the Universal Studios theme park, there's a backlot tour that they do where they actually did film a lot of stuff. I know they had Desperate Housewives and some stuff for one of the Dr. Seuss films and Psycho. They had a whole bunch of stuff that you can, they ride you through. I think they finally demolished the Desperate Housewives tour. They might not demolish it right away. They might try to cash in and do some backlot tours for the new film. While it's maybe in theaters or I don't know. I'm just assuming. I'm trying to take an educated guess about what, they might do. And maybe it'll be a few years before they demolish that. Who knows? But if you are in the UK and you do have the chance to go see it while it's still there, if they do backlot tours. Chocolate Cake for Breakfast says Universal is opening a theme park in Bedfordshire in the next few years. So who knows? Maybe it'll be there for viewing. Yes, we had some other people questioning the validity of the post, the description. And then this how do you say, Spree Walled Garden says, I love to see this come true. Hope it looks in the sequel the same whimsical, magical way than the first movie, with the sound of the sea and seagulls screeching. Yeah, I'm sure they'll take care of all of that with the movie magic, Oh my god, this literally made me catch my breath, Graham's Tale says. And Julio P. Pomoras says, I mean, in one hand, I'm the happiest person discovering the house is back again. On the other hand, the CGI is going to destroy the real magic from the first movie. Yes, I do agree with that. Dave Maid says, Slents KT, and then Casey Dietrich says, very happy to see the house. Only bummer is that they're shooting the whole film in London. I wish the scenes that take place in the Owens hometown got to be shot in a real New England town. But if we remember, the first film wasn't even shot in real New England. Go listen to our Maria's Island episode on season 1. The first film was actually shot in Washington State, on the opposite side of the country than New England. So what they can do with movie magic and what the viewer might not know might not hurt us, right? Because movie magic can do anything. Practically Magic Friend says if they are smart, they will do some post-production changes and open it as a place for us fans to come and stay and do workshops and stuff. That would be so cool.
I reply, plus a B&B.
Because Kristina actually already manages a bed and breakfast in South Carolina, so it's not something that you would not be used to, right?
Exactly. Yep. It's doable. It's not going to be 10, 20 rooms, 5 rooms at the most. This is all hypothetical, guys, but not real.
Yeah, we don't even have the funds to do this. This is just dreaming. We're dreaming here. Chelsea Witchy Creator says, I need them to have built the house on a real lot and have it turned into an Airbnb. I think we're all pining for the same thing, guys.
Yes.
So if we all can dream it, maybe we can be it eventually one day. Rocky Horror style, right?
Yeah.
Don't dream it, be it. Alexander Padilla says, God, I'm going to earn the money to build that house one day. I swear it. Nicholas Wendell says, so sadly it's not on the cliffside, but at least it's back. Yeah. So Mayor says, keep Barbara Streisand away from it.
I like that one. It was funny.
Brooke says, sobbing. Refined Aurora says, if I ever become rich enough from the lottery or whatever that means, there would be signs. I'd build the Owens house and rent it out year round at a reasonable rate so anyone could enjoy it. Into the Abyss says, magical spell broken. I mean, that's the thing about behind the scenes shot, guys. We're seeing the outside of the movie magic. We're not seeing the final edit. So until we see the final edit, we don't know what kind of movie magic they're going to make. So I would just hang tight.
Yeah, that's a good point because the first film shot in the 90s, we didn't get that behind the scenes stuff unless you had the DVD and unless you put those ingredients in the right order in that cauldron to see the behind the scenes stuff. I think that just immersed us in a whole different way than all the stuff that gets thrown at us every week. Polarizing, we're not going to get it. Now we're going to get it. We're just seeing the production and it is kind of taken away from the magic a little bit.
A little bit. We had some people saying, where's Franny? Where's Franny? But here's the thing. Maybe Franny wasn't in any of the shots that they were doing in the general public. Obviously we're seeing here on the backlot, they have a closed set here. So maybe she's just confined to the soundstage shoots that they're doing. So maybe that's why we haven't seen her out and about doing these public shoots. So Deja Vu says, I swear the lore around the Owens house and Barbara Streisand is my Roman Empire. KZZ says, no, it's fine. It's just not what I imagined a set lot to look like, right?
It's fine.
That's the thing about movie magic, though. We don't need to know that. It was a leak. I don't think they intended for that to leak.
No, I don't think so.
Christy Marie says, that's a really close set. I could swear the ocean was real last time. It was real last time. I don't know if they're joking, but it was on location. I would hope so. Or Julian Rodriguez says, can we please leave it up and sell it after and make it an actual house? And I think that's where we had some TikTok beef going on because one person was they responded to that and they were like, you can't make a set an actual house. It's built differently. And we're like, whoa.
Hang on, y'all. We get it.
We know. We're dreaming here.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. We're manifesting. But we had an interesting thing circling back to what Steven said about $1 a fan. So somebody then commented on that very detailed blueprint we posted on our grid a long time ago. Jin78 said, I so desperately want to build this, but the last time I priced it out at approximately 2 million was before the early pandemic shot building costs sky high. And now the basic build is New Zealand is 5K per square meter. The damn thing is gonna cost nearly 5 million, including finished attic and greenhouse. And then Jess, I saw you sent sad faces, and so I replied, we can do it.
Well, hey, listen, girl, let's just remind everybody that we were able to raise $11,000 in like a month.
That is true. If there's no timeline or like due date,
Nothing's impossible. Nothing's impossible. Look,
Nothing's
we wanted to make a music album, we did it. This is a big undertaking. Like, this is gonna be outside the realm of like what we even think is possible, but you never know. You never know.
I like that
You never know.
possibility.
If Stephen Alish is on board, then we might get this in the bag. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody was saying about, getting it back in its original location. And I'm like, well, it would be even cooler if it had a New England zip code.
02568.
A. B, you can't construct on Indian burial ground.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So I don't know if a lot of people know. Well, people watching this right now probably know, but the people who are like randomly commenting or like maybe like the movie a little bit don't know the ins and outs of this movie and the behind the scenes and like the shooting of the first film. They might not know that the first house was built on Indian burial ground, and now it's like a public park. Who knows if maybe the permits changed? Maybe that's why they weren't able to go back and shoot there.
Oh, good point. Yeah. Practically Magick is like, she's on board with us. She commented, if they are smart, they will do some post-production changes and open it as a place for us fans to come and stay and do workshops and such. Then Jordan said, let's raise money and make it ourselves. And then she said, Magnolia Street Podcast and I are considering it.
Amazing.
So we have people already on board. Leave a note in the comments if, I guess we can take a poll. Should we start a GoFundMe?
Yeah.
I'm tempting the fate here because
here's the thing. If everybody donated $1, we'll be good.
Really? $1. There's millions of fans out there. I think overall people are happy to see the attempt of bringing this house back and making sure the tactile elements are there. We will have to suspend our disbelief or our imaginations with the surrounding elements as far as the ocean and the nature. We got to remind ourselves, like Justina said, that this whole house, as well as the garden and the surrounding trees and the flora, was all fake in the first movie. So are we happy we're getting the house? Yes, absolutely. Are we disappointed it won't have the same grounded, visceral feeling it did from the first film being set in such a natural landscape? Yes, of course. But we gotta just give it a little grace. It's Hollywood. It's not real. But I think one day it might be real.
You never know. And we might be able to give it an actual 02568 zip code, right?
Jess, you want to do the honors? This last piece of news?
Yo, I cannot believe when I was scrolling and I saw this pop up and I was like, oh, that's cute. I didn't know what it was at first. And then I noticed that it was from Nicole's page. And I was like, okay, is this Practical Magic related? And then I read the caption and I was like, what? She said in her caption, that's a wrap on Practical Magic 2. Thank you to the cast and crew for all your magic. So I'm guessing they're done with the principal filming.
Somebody commented, I don't know if it was on her, somebody said, this feels very much like we're both supposed to die on the same day. And it's giving me...
Oh my God.
Right?
We had a comment over on our promo for this live from Graham's Tales who says, I'm feeling a little more comfortable now that I've done some research on how long it takes to film a movie. The entire thing takes a lot longer, but the actual filming part, apparently they seem right on track for most movies without a ton of special effects and location changes and all that. I even read that post-production takes the longest. It can be anywhere from 6 months to 1 year, so that's about right 1 year from now. So I I said, yeah, it took our little low budget studio music album an entire year for post-production. And we only spent 1 week in the recording studio. So post-production is crazy tedious. And we were only doing music. I can only imagine how many moving parts go into like an actual major motion picture. So I'm sure they're gonna take a significant amount of time for post when, like, principal photography didn't really take that long.
And we got to remember, we got this Practical Magic 2 news last summer.
Right.
Who knows how far they had already gotten into their planning and their production when we heard the news. So it might not have been that quick at all.
You're right, absolutely. So there are a lot of things to take into consideration. I know it feels quick because we only just started seeing these like behind the scenes leaks like within the past month or so, and now all of a sudden they're done. But maybe they have been working on it since they actually dropped that teaser last June,
Exactly. Yeah.
For sure.
I'm full of the feels. It still feels like a fever dream. It's totally uncanny valley still because I think we're so tied to that original film. We're just gonna have to give it a little grace and a little room to grow and give this production a chance.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like so many people are poo-pooing it right off the bat because they are seeing the behind the scenes stuff and they're like having all these opinions. And yeah, opinions, they're fine and dandy, but you have to wait till the final piece is out for viewing, released by the studio with all the movie magic, all the parts in place, because it all comes down to, not just the shooting, the filming, but also the soundtrack, the music, the vibes, the special effects. Although maybe they're minimal, but those even the little subtlest of effects are gonna make a movie what it is, that movie magic. So you gotta just take it with a grain of salt right now and just be ready to accept the magic when it's presented to us next fall.
And we can't do this without you guys. Like, we really appreciate any news you find, send it our way so we can share it with all the other listeners. Because we're not doing this on our own. A lot of you are sending us things and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, we really do rely on little tips from fans who are getting little bits of information before we even do, and we'll always give credit where credit's due, right? If we, somebody comes forward with some information, we're gonna gas you up on here and tell you guys where we got that information from. So, are we ready to fly alongside the world of another familiar today? From myth to modern science, crows have long been messengers, shapeshifters, and symbols of fate. Today, we're talking about Maria's beloved Caden and Franny's loyal Lewis, crow funerals and urban scavengers, omens, tattoos, and what it means to be chosen by a bird with a brain as powerful as a primate. So grab your broom, put on your black cloak, and join us as we take flight into the magical world of crows. Sound nice.
Nice. Cool. Let's start with magic lessons where we meet Caden. So before there were spells, before there were books, before Maria Owens even understood the shape of her own name, there was Caden, a crow nearly as large as the child herself when she was a baby. Dark as soot, sharp-eyed, and unrelenting, he found her first before any human did. And when Hannah came upon the baby in the basket, it was to find her staring up at the bird with a gaze just as direct, just as knowing, as if she already belonged to him, or perhaps as if he belonged to her. In folklore, crows are messengers. They carry stories across time. Some say they travel between realms of the living and the dead, ferrying secrets in their wings. In the snowy devotion field, the very first secret they carried was Maria Owens here. In the days that follow, Caden refused to leave. He batted his wings against the clouded windows of Hannah's cottage, undeterred by vinegar shouts or broom handles. He perched on the fence, soaked by rain, refusing food and drink. For 7 days, he kept his post, unmoving. And on the 7th, Hannah finally sighed and spoke to the baby, saying, "I suppose he's yours, or perhaps you're his. Because you cannot choose a familiar, it chooses you." From that day forward, Caden became Maria's shadow, her sentinel, her companion, her soul's mirror. On stormy nights, he roosted beside the fire. In sunlit fields, he flew overhead. He was not tame, not a pet. He was something older than that. Something sacred. He began to bring her treasures, never random, always charged with some subtle purpose. Coins, buttons, scraps of thread, a child's poppet, a silver thimble, a blue pearl, and one day, on a windless afternoon, he brought her a miracle. A silver hairpin inlaid with rubies, still warm from its last owner. Stolen, clearly, but intended intimately, unmistakably. For Maria, he returned wounded from the effort, a new scar gleaming against his black crown. Maria was just 8 years old. She lifted the pin as though it might vanish. In her small hand, the silver turned black, as if the magic in her blood recognized that it had been claimed. Hannah, standing nearby with her garden leeks clutched to her chest, said nothing, but she felt the ache of something ancient stir in her bones. Maria wore that pin every day. I don't know about that. As night grew, so did her gift. She could taste snow on the air, predict the rain, speak backwards. She could call to the birds with sharp clacks of her tongue. Sparrows rested in her palm. Magpies answered her. Even doves tilted their heads to listen. But with Caden, words were rarely necessary. They shared an understanding deeper than language, one built with glances, instinct, and time. Before his flight, she would whisper, "Bring me something wonderful, just don't get caught." And somehow he never was. He guided her to mysteries and signs, a toad floating in still water that would become the guardian of her grimoire, a woman marked with a red crescent behind the knee, Rebecca Lachlan, Maria's mother, who had once owned the very hairpin now darkened by Maria's magic. There were secrets Caden seemed to know long before Maria did. He was her compass, her witness, her reminder. Nothing truly sacred is ever silent. When Maria sailed across the ocean, Caden came too, tucked inside a travel basket woven with reeds. The sailors, wary of omens and old wives' tales, might have feared a crow on board, but Maria called him her black albatross, a harbinger of luck. None dared to argue. On stormy nights when ropes strained and waves tossed the ship like a toy, Maria hid Caden beneath her cloak and fed him crumbs. When the sea calmed, he perched beside her. His feathers, now dusted with white, still gleamed in the moonlight. When Babyface called him caw-caw, not caw-caw, caw-caw, Maria smiled. When she watched her daughter call birds from the sky, she remembered. When the silver hairpin caught the light in the mirror, she touched it gently. He brought her tokens from every port. Bullets, fishhooks, sea glass, scallop shells, colored stones. Once, even a key that seemed to fit every door she tried. In strange cities, when Maria's loneliness felt heavier than her cloak, Caden slept beside her, his warm body weight, his soft clacking a lullaby. By then, he was aging. But even as time wore at his wings, he never strayed far. But not everyone loved Caden. John Hathorne, proud, powerful, and blind to the deeper truths, despised him. From the moment he stepped into Maria's life, Caden bristled. He dive-bombed John's hat, stole his hair comb, and dropped stones on his shoulders. Caden saw something Maria didn't want to see, or couldn't. Later, he would bring her 3 strands of coarse black hair, the final clue. They were from her father. Caden had known the truth all along, and in his own way, he gave it to her. Not with fanfare, not with words, just 3 quiet strands, left where she would find them. But even the cleverest of creatures couldn't escape the claws of fear. In Salem, Hawthorne fanned the flames of superstition. He called Caden a devil's bird, an omen of evil, and rallied the men with rifles to rid the town of darkness. They marched through the fields with gunpowder and arrogance. 1,000 crows rose from the trees. The sky darkened. Gunshots cracked. Blood spilled. Maria heard it all. She ran through the night, barefoot and breathless, and found Caden in tall grass, broken and still. They couldn't tell one crow from another, but Maria knew. She always knew. She wrapped Caden in the torn fabric of her dress. Her scream carried it to the sea. Some hunters paused, uneasy. They whispered of a grieving mate, mourning her lost companion. But Hawthorne knew. He knew it was Maria. He knew what he had done. She built a pyre on a flat stone by the lake, lit it with her own trembling hand. The smoke rose white into the sky, and with it she released her dearest friend, her protector, her black heart. Even in death, Caden did not leave her. A bruise, shaped like a crow, bloomed on her arm. Her spells became sharper, fiercer. She dreamed of feathers and sky, and then, one day, spring came. The air softened, the ice cracked, and on a quiet morning walk, Maria heard a familiar sound, a fledgling fallen from the nest. Not a memory, but real. It ignored Maria, but when baby... Oh, this is... Okay, so remember she had a second baby.
Oh, right,
Anna
right.
stretched out her tiny hand. The crow came. It nested in her coat, its heartbeat slow to match hers. Another choosing, another beginning. Maria went on to live, to heal, to mourn, to leave the window open always. Caden's feather lived in a charm at her throat. His memory lived in every whisper warning, every sharp-eyed glance toward the trees. Familiars are not chosen, they choose. And when they do, they see not only your power, but your heartbreak, your courage, the places inside you even you are afraid to touch. Maria Owens was never truly alone, not even in the loneliest nights, because once her black heart with wings had chosen her, and she had loved him back. And sometimes, if you're lucky, a black heart will find you again. The story of Caden in Magic Lessons is so sad.
Yeah.
But I like that Alice brought it back around, that the lineage of the Owens in baby Hannah also has a little black crow familiar. So cute.
Right. All right. So that was it for Magic Lessons. We're going to move on to Rules of Magic now. And in this book, Franny kind of makes a wish, right? She gets a bird. We're gonna talk about it in a second. But this one's name was Lewis. Obviously not Caden. I always was like, do you think it's the same bird, like the same spirit of Maria's bird that kind of like transcends space and time, like a
Why not?
psychopomp or something?
Yeah, their
Because it
spirit
did
guide.
kind of like come out of nowhere, right? When she wished for it. So getting into rules of magic now. So before she ever admitted she had a heart, Franny Owens was chosen by a crow. Not picked, not tamed. The bird chose her. She dreamed of birds before she knew why. Graceful, distant, beautiful, and in those dreams, she belonged among them. One night, she sat on a bench in Central Park, dreaming of a blackbird eating from her palm. The crow told her his name in that strange dream language, clear in the moment, but gone by morning. She woke with only the memory of the weight of his presence and the eerie feeling that he had been real. There were stories about Maria Owens turning herself into a crow to accomplish her witchery. A farmer claimed to have shot at a blackbird in his cornfield and the next day saw Maria with her arm bandaged. Crows and Owens women had been intertwined for centuries. Franny, unlike her sister Jet, unlike most people, preferred birds to humans. They were uncomplicated and honest, distant but not cold, and perhaps because of this, birds always found her. From the sparrow that landed in Aunt Isabel's house every Midsummer's Eve, right? And to the heron in the reeds, and eventually to the crow in the oak tree. He sat silent and enormous, watching her. Jet had tugged Franny's sleeve to get her attention. Was that your wish? Oh, this was when they were making that wish on All Hallows Eve underneath that beautiful, was it a red oak tree? Yeah, so Jet was like, was that your wish? And she asked when she saw the bird. Franny nodded more or less. When Franny raised her arms to greet the bird, the wind shifted. He dropped down from the branch and landed on her with a force that shocked her. His eyes locked with hers, and she swore she heard it inside her chest. I will never leave unless you send me away. She fainted right then and there in the grass. Vincent found her moments later, pale and trembling. She insisted she was fine, but she was not. The crow had made his choice, and in doing so, cracked something open in her. He followed her everywhere after that. He watched her from rooftops. He tapped on windows until she let him in. He perched on curtain rods and velvet chairs, eyeing her with an uncanny intelligence. Her siblings called him a familiar. Franny, of course, resisted the term. He's a foundling, she said, but the connection between them was undeniable. He was with her through heartbreak and reunion. When Halen appeared in her life again, Lewis watched from above, as if waiting for her to either leap or retreat. When they fought, Lewis would ruffle his feathers and caw disapprovingly. He didn't meddle, but he had opinions. April, the Owens cousin, was the first to say it outright. You have a familiar, she told Franny, and Franny replied, he's not a familiar, he's a foundling. But April just smiled. Tell yourself that. Franny went to Halen's apartment. Lewis made himself at home. He purchased burros and curtain rods, watching everything. When Halen fed him bits of crust from his sandwich, Lewis accepted them with quiet dignity. Ritz crackers became his favorite. Halen, in turn, was both charmed and confused. He's not a pet, Franny would remind him. He comes and goes as he pleases. She named him Lewis on a whim, in response to Halen quoting Lewis Carroll. Why is a raven like a writing desk? He asked. She shrugged and said, Lewis. It was the first name she'd name him anything at all, and it stuck. From that moment, he became not just a crow, but her crow. Still, Lewis was not docile. He followed his own code. One night, when Franny tried to ask the bird to choose between her family members using 3 breadcrumbs, Lewis refused. He flew into the sky, unbothered by her request. He would not perform. He would not tell her future. He was loyal, not obedient. What a little asshole.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
punky.
It is, right? When Halen left her, Lewis left too. But years later, on New Year's Day, he returned. She hadn't seen him in 2 years. He disappeared for 2 years. Yo, that would give me anxiety.
Yeah.
For 2 years, I would have anxiety, not knowing where my familiar was. He landed on her shoulder as though no time passed at all. She asked, is it Halen? The crow pressed his beak to her cheek, and she knew. Halen was gone. Franny had always claimed to be heartless, the maid of thorns, but that day she wept as though her heart would break in half, and Lewis wept with her, though crows have no tear ducts. But still, he cried. She brought Lewis home one final time. She wrapped him in a soft blanket and placed him beside the radiator where he always liked to perch. He coughed and fretted through the night. By morning, the crow who had followed her through decades of silence and storm had died. She buried him behind the shed in the backyard. One of the Merrill boys helped dig the grave, but it was Franny who stood by and placed him into the earth. There was no spell, no grand farewell, just the quiet certainty that Lewis had never truly belonged to her alone. He had chosen her, yes, but he had loved Halen just as much, and she had always known that. In folklore, crows are said to live 20 years or more, and to remember faces, voices, and landscapes. They are messengers and memory keepers, and familiar is not a name, but an action. They do not serve, they walk or fly beside. Lewis had never once failed her, not when she fainted in the grass, not when she cursed herself for loving, not when she needed to grieve. Familiars are not pets, they are witnesses, guardians of the soul, and if a familiar chooses you, it does not do so lightly. It sees something in you that you may not yet see in yourself. Franny Owens, for all her thorns and sharp edges, had been loved fiercely by a creature of feathers and shadows, and when he left, it was not with bitterness, it was with reverence. She had been chosen, and when a crow chooses you, it means you are seen, known, and remembered, even in silence and even in grief. And sometimes, long after they're gone, you will still feel the weight of them on your shoulder, because the ones who choose us never really leave. That, to me, is heartbreaking. Like,
I was
knowing,
gonna
like,
say, are you thinking of Coraline when you're reading that?
yeah, because like pets have such like a small, so much smaller of a lifespan than we do, and they're only here for a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And I always see this meme float around that always makes me cry, and it says something like, to you, they might be a pet and they're only here for a short amount of time, but to them, you're their entire world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it also breaks my heart when I see pets in like adoption centers that are there because they've lost their owner.
Yeah.
And now they're lost because that owner was their entire world. And now they have to work up trust and putting trust into like another human now.
No.
It's just, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart.
I understand. Yeah, when you halfway through this, I was like, I know she's thinking about Coraline right now.
It tears me up inside. Yeah. I keep both her and Punky, I keep their whiskers in a little jar because
Little
like
magical essence.
yeah, because I know one day when they pass on eventually, I'm gonna have those parts of them that I can maybe turn into jewelry or wear in a little thing around my neck, like how Franny wore Kaden, or was it Maria or Franny that had the necklace that we just read?
I think for Maria. I think
Maria with wearing Caden's feather around her neck. Like, I just think that's a really sweet way to memorialize and remember your familiar, your pet. Do you consider any of your pets like familiars or like your soul animal?
Not my current pets. When I was living at the rat hole, Shotzi was my cat from Pennsylvania, and she was really like, she had been with me through everything, through the boyfriends, through the move, through the divorce, through finding my relationship with Aaron. So I had contacted an animal like communicator because she was starting to look kind of skinny. And I was like, I just want to check in with her. And I had never done it before. And it was like the week before, and she just disappeared one day. We would let her in and out, but she never came back that day. And I was just so distraught. And, just talking about it with this woman afterward, she was like, when you were in the right place with the right person and everything fell into place, she could go. You were safe and taken care of, and her job was done. And I was like, oh my God.
That would break me.
Yeah. So Shotzi disappeared, and then the following week my grandma died.
Oh,
Not nearly as broken up as I was for the cat. Yeah. Right now I don't feel like I have a familiar. No, but that's okay. It's all right.
It's okay. Yeah, not, and like Alice says in these books, right? Your familiars are not pets. They're like kind of like a soul. They're there for a soul purpose on a much deeper level. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree. Do I feel that with Papillon, John? She just showed up on her own and she picked us, and we've been taking care of her since. And I have to remind myself that she is an indoor-outdoor cat, and maybe that's a lesson in impermanence and mortality. Like, love her and let her be your garden cat and take care of what she needs to, and love on her and give her the best life you can. But you have to understand, she will not be here one day. And I have such a hard time with with grief and losing people, animals. So it's I think that's the lesson she's here to teach me.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway. So practical magic.
Yeah. Moving on.
So in practical magic, it's not so much of a main character, but crows do show up. Because crows are never just background creatures. They're messengers, omens, symbols of magic and mischief, and sometimes there's something more. In practical magic, Alice Hoffman doesn't use crows lightly. Each appearance is charged, whether subtle or striking. But let's begin with the cats. Because at the Owens house, even the cats speak in symbols. The aunts know for their quiet strangeness and powerful magic. They have this entire flock of feline familiars, but they're all named after birds. Cardinal, raven, goose, and of course, crow. There's even a moody tom named Magpie and a gawky kitten named Dove. Their choice to name their cats after birds, especially crow, and their kin sets the tone. In this house, boundaries between animals and magic blur. Bird names on earthbound creatures remind us that familiars don't have to fly to carry meaning, and their names hold power. But perhaps the most memorable moment involving a crow happens far from a quiet moment in the aunt's parlor.
Quick question. One of these cats came to Jet in Rules of Magic, right? Which one was that? Do you remember?
It was
right.
Magpie.
She named it a bird name or something.
Yeah, I think it was Magpie.
Is it Magpie? And Magpie is the one that we think we see in the film, right? The black
Right.
cat that's like hissing when they drag Jimmy through the door, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because in the book,
That's the black cat.
Magpie is at the house when Sally and Jillian are young, and that one's the one that follows her to school, right?
Yeah.
Black Cats was last spooky season, I think, when we
Yeah,
talked
yep.
about them. Mhm.
Wow, that was almost a year ago already.
I know. So in this scene, Jillian, spiraling from a series of personal disasters, walks in onto the patio in a fit of frustration, only to step on a dead crow. And it had seemingly fallen from the sky directly in her path. A warning, an omen, or a reflection of her own unraveling luck. It's never really spelled out, and that's the magic of Hoffman's writing. It leaves space for interpretation. But for Jillian, it's a dark mirror. In her words, everything she touches falls apart. Vegetable, mineral, animal, it doesn't matter. And now the crow too, fallen and final. As if the universe had dropped a message at her feet. Something is dying, and something must die before it can be made right. And then back to Maria. This has been the mythos since the beginning in this first book. Generations before, Maria Owens haunted the fields and the roads of Massachusetts, the matriarch of the family legacy. People say that they saw her coat billowing through the orchards and say they could feel her presence in their bones. And once a farmer shot a crow in his cornfield, a crow that had been stealing shamelessly for weeks. The next day, Maria appears with her arm in a sling and her hand wrapped in a white bandage. That's all it takes for the whispers to bloom like mold in the corners of the shops. Maria is this shapeshifter, a witch who takes the form of crows to do her work. They smile to her face, but when she turns her back, they raise her finger in the sign of the fox to unravel any lingering spell. That Malokio. They nail horseshoes over their doors. They hang mistletoe because the crow they shot might not have just been a bird, it might have been her. Even in death, the crow remains a potent image. When the aunts return to help dispose of Jimmy's body, they come with their own version of a family recipe. This one's not for tea, not for soup, but for removing nasty things from the garden. Among the list, aphids, slugs, poisonous weeds, and the bloody remains of a crow, torn apart by his rivals. The phrasing is intentional. A crow destroyed by others of its kind, just like Jimmy. A warning hidden in a metaphor. So crows in practical magic are more than birds. They're reflections, familiars, warnings. They arrive at moments of transformation just before something falls apart. Or just as something dark begins to bloom. Whether winged across the sky or curled on the couch in feline form, they remain watchful, constant, threaded through the magic that surrounds the Owens women, and the mystery that never quite leaves them alone.
I love that. I love how they kind of still are incorporating all that like bird imagery through the names of their cats. I did a search on the Rules of Magic kitten that Jet gets. She names it Wren.
Okay.
Yeah,
a wren
which
is
is
kind of like a corvid.
It looks kind of more like a little sparrow. It says a wren is a type of small brown active bird belonging to the family, I don't even know what this word is, Troglodidae?
Troglodidae.
But they're known for their loud songs and distinctive cocked tails, and they're primarily insectivorous and also eat seeds and berries. So
The state bird for South Carolina is the Carolina wren.
Is it?
That was a name for our house. I was going to use like Wren Hollow or Wren Cottage or something. I thought would be cool.
Cute. Love that.
Yeah.
And now going on to the last book, the Book of Magic. So across the Owens family history, crows appear again and again. Wings spread wide, eyes sharp, messengers of fate and keepers of secrets. They are familiars, yes, but they are more than that. They're soulmates, and no one knows this better than Franny Owens. Franny's beloved crow familiar Lewis was not just a bird, he was her companion, her equal, her magical other half, and when he died, she never found another. Because that's the thing about a true familiar. You don't choose them, they choose you. And when they leave, it's a wound that magic can't quite heal, as you were just saying with your kitty cat that you lost, right? So the family's love for crows runs deep. Agnes, in one of the quiet but significant gestures that mark the passing of power, gives Franny a centuries-old talisman, a charm strung on a leather cord, cast from river gold. On one side, the eye, on the other, a crow, a symbol of protection passed down through generations of witches. Agnes could have given it to Sally, but she doesn't. She gives it to Franny, saying simply, when evil comes looking for someone, you'll be ready. And we see the crow in ink as well as in flight. Ian, the cursed historian that Sally saves, right, has a massive crow tattooed across his back. A thing of pain and purpose, each feather etched with care. It's not just body art, it's his identity. And to Ian, the crow is his second self. The part of him that soars free even while he's trapped. Because isn't he in jail for like a while?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the caged bird, he was the caged bird, literally.
Right.
When he dreams as the crow. And when he finally finds love, it's Sally who sees the truth of him. Not in what he says, but in that bird inked across his spine. And the crow, for Sally, is a mark of fate. Franny once looked at her niece's palm and saw the shape of a crow, a symbol of freedom written in a language that only certain women understand. Sally herself has an affinity for birds. She can whistle them down from the treetops, and when she finds a fallen young crow in the grass on the day Franny is born and Jet so Franny's birthday, and Jet dies, which is the spring equinox, March 20th, right? She doesn't question it. She brings it home and she names it Houdini. And just as Ian predicted, Houdini never leaves. Because that's the pattern. When a crow chooses you, it's forever. Houdini perches at the bar of the Three Hedges Inn, stealing cherries, sulking, refusing affection from tipsy strangers. He waits for Sally to return like a lover would, and Jessie, the barkeep, reassures him like you would a heartbroken friend. She'll come back, wait and see. And she does. That crow, scrappy, stubborn, and loyal, it is not just a pet. He's magic incarnate. Reminder that familiars are more than symbols. They're reflections, guardians, and they're parts of ourselves that we don't always understand but desperately need. When danger circles, crows are the first to know. In the Book of Magic, they fly at night, something they're never supposed to do, signaling crisis. They gather in the sky when a spell turns dark. They cover the treetops when Ian lies poisoned, his blood burning, as Sally leans over him and pulls him back from the edge. Even in dreams, they come. Antonia sees them winging overhead as she walks through danger, shielding her like a storm cloud of wings. In Devotion Field, where weddings are held and curses linger, the crows are ever watchful. They remember everything, like sentinels of the past. And then there's Maria Owens, a girl or a shade or a memory caught in a loop, seen walking through the marsh again and again, 300 years after her death. And each time she appears, a single crow flies with her, always present and circling, an eternal companion on an unfinished journey, as if even the dead aren't alone when a crow has claimed them. So what do crows really mean in the practical magic universe? They mean devotion and fates, and they mean magic that follows you even when you think you've left it behind. And they represent a kind of love that isn't romantic, but it's just as deep, or maybe even deeper. A love that knows your soul and never lets go. And maybe most of all, they mean that we are never truly alone, not in grief or magic or even in love, because somewhere just overhead, a crow is watching. And if you're lucky, it's watching you. So that's it. That's the last bit from Book of Magic. And did you have anything to add to that before we take a quick break?
I wonder if they're going to utilize any crow motif in this film.
Right.
No.
You know what's has like heavy, I don't know if it's crow or raven energy. Are you watching Wednesday on Netflix?
Not the second season. I haven't seen it.
Okay. The second season, I don't remember if the birds have as much to do with the first season, but in the second season, they're like a really big plot point.
Okay.
In the beginning of the season anyway.
Cool.
Very, very cool. But that's all we have for the books. So stay with us, and after the break, we're going to dive deeper into the history of familiars and folklore, what it means to be chosen by a creature of power, and how the lore of crows has carried us through centuries. From Norse mythology to Appalachian superstition, the crow has never been just a bird. It has always been a mirror, a messenger, and a companion. So stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, little witches! The Stinas here. If you've been listening to our podcast for a while, you would know how much we love using the Practical Magic Inner Witch Oracle deck by Grounded by the Moon.
And now we want to share the magic of Grounded by the Moon with you, our listeners. Joseph Benitez Egerton, the creator behind Grounded by the Moon, would like to offer this very special 10% off discount to all who wish to experience the magic of his Practical Magic themed tarot and oracle decks.
But that's not all. He also creates other divination tools materials like tarot workbooks, deck bags and altar cloths, pendulum kits, oil blends, cleansing sprays, smoke wands, teas, and ritual kits.
And let's not forget about his custom handcrafted, all-natural soy candles, where every candle is hand-poured and personally infused and charged under the light of the moon. They even come with a crystal.
And did we mention all of the ingredients in the candles are ethically sourced?
All of Joseph's offerings are just so magical. So go visit groundedbythemoon.com and use the coupon code Magnolia Magick for 10% off your entire order at checkout.
That's MAGNOLIA MAGIC. So get your discount today.
You're listening to the Magnolia Street Podcast.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if there's Crow. I know he has Raven in here, but no.
He has Crow. I pulled it out.
Of the Fawns and Familiars deck?
Yes, it looks like this.
Okay. He also has Raven. I don't know if you want to do that one too.
Oh, that's fine. He has both?
Yeah.
I wonder what the difference is.
Right. Okay. All right. So I guess we'll start with Crow.
Okay.
All right. So Crow, Corvidae is the scientific name on here, represented by the water element. Surprising it's not air, you know?
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Water elements ruled by Saturn and Scorpio. And the mantra on this card is I open myself to receiving mystical guidance as it presents itself. So yes, this card stands for mystical guidance and messages, symbols, directions, signs, and divination. So this says the Crow card brings with it mystical guidance from the universe. There are always signs, synchronicities, and guidance available to you if you are open to receiving them. Stay present and attuned to the messages that the universe presents to you, whether it be through dreams, symbols, or encounters with others. With this, you will gain insight and clarity about your life's path. The Crow encourages spiritual growth and insists that you trust the power of your intuition. Know that deep down, deep within yourself, you hold the wisdom and guidance you need. Listen to these whispers of your soul and follow their guidance. By doing so, you can make choices and decisions that align with your true purpose and bring you closer to your spiritual path. Even when it seems as though you've lost your way, have faith that you will be pointed in the right direction. Okay, so that's the Crow, and let's see the Raven. This one is the air element, and this is ruled by Pluto, Uranus, and Scorpio. The scientific name is Corvus Corax, and the mantra on this card is I call on my power of perception to see beyond the surface and reveal the unknown. And this card is all about revealing the hidden, discovery, unmask, and breakthrough. So this says, the Raven can appear in a reading to aid in revealing the hidden. Despite its darkness, this ebony creature can unmask real intentions and bring the truth to light. This could be a sign that what you perceive to be authentic or genuine may not be. By bringing these hidden aspects to light, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and make positive changes in our lives. The Raven reminds us that there is beauty and wisdom to be found in the darkness. It encourages you to embrace the unknown and trust your intuition as you navigate through life. By revealing the hidden, you open yourself up to new perspectives, opportunities, and growth. It is possible that the Raven's energy has found you to assist you in experiencing a breakthrough. This card is here to see that you get past the obstacles that stand in your way. You may feel as though, no matter how hard you try, you don't seem to get anywhere. Allow the Raven card to assure you that this is not the case. You are closer than you know.
Very cool. That's giving me like the moon card in the tarot a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
So interesting difference between the two.
Yeah, the Crow card, the Crow has a white beak. And I don't know if we're going to learn the differences between crows and ravens here shortly, but I don't know if I've ever taken notice that they have white beaks.
Right. Or maybe, yeah, I don't know. I've never noticed that either. Okay.
Cool. Don't forget to go to Joseph's site, groundedbythemoon.com. Get your 10% off with our coupon code Magnolia Magick. And here we go. We're going to be talking about crows. I've always felt this connection with crows personally and ravens. And as a witch, it's kind of cliche to say, but they are revered by pagans and Wiccans alike because I feel like we can sense how smart they are and how loyal they are to each other and the underlying power and magic that they have. I think my raven tattoo here was the second tattoo I ever got. It's on my wrist. And I had like nicknamed them at one point, the Odin's two ravens, like Hugin and Munin, which we'll talk about later. But my husband just recently got this beautiful raven done as well. Yet another little way practical magic seep into my life. Ian's back tattoo. I don't know if you can see the photo, but this guy did an
Yeah.
amazing job. I love Aaron, but he is the most awkward phone conversationalist you will ever fucking hear in your life.
Yeah.
So this guy, great artist. We shouted him out a while ago, but very he works in Asheville, so that is a kind of mindset that like is like deep thinker and asks these questions. And I'm listening to this guy ask Aaron like, what does this design evoke for you? And it's just crickets.
Oh
Aaron's
my
like,
God.
he's
like-
like, no, my brain doesn't really work that way.
He's like, I just
it.
like ravens.
Yeah, it was so
Oh my
fucking
God.
funny. Anyway, yeah, since then, since getting my tattoo, that I probably got it when I was like 18, 19. It's faded. It is very blown out over time.
Yeah.
And I was actually supposed to get this tattoo with my best friend at the time. And I remember driving to the tattoo parlor and they backed out. They
Okay.
backed out, which really hurt at the time, but now I'm realizing that it is a good thing that she and I never had that blood pact in that sense, because, you know, our cells do turn over every 7 years, so we're technically all new people. Whereas if she and I had gotten the same tattoo, I'm thinking this is the same person I did the blood oath with,
Right.
So those cells have already died away. They're gone. We're all new people. However, if she and I got the same tattoo, I think I would be remembering that friendship and that dissolving of the friendship, and it would hurt, you know, more than it already does, and I would be grieving it in a much different way. So we actually don't have a lot of crows or ravens here, at least here in my neighborhood. I did see a huge one flying yesterday on my way to work, whereas in California, they're just everywhere. They're so everywhere. And during that time was when I discovered, you know, this connection with them, and I really tried to pay attention to their messages. And in California is when I, you know, started to piece together why I was leaving Christianity and why I was falling into the pagan path. So
Right.
crows are very special to me. They're very beautiful. I think they're fascinating. I can't wait to learn more about them. You know, to feel like I didn't get this tattoo for nothing. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I actually, somebody recently, I think it was Penny. So shout out to our listener, What Penny Made. She sent me a package, I think it was like a year ago, of friends of hers. They befriended their crows in their neighborhood, and she sent me a little crow sticker. So I have to find it's like up in my, I keep all like my magical mail from people in like a box up there. So if I find it later and we're still recording later, I'll have to dig it out and show it to you because it's really
Oh, I
freaking.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I love ravens, love crows. I don't have any tattoos of them, but I'm a super Edgar Allan Poe whore, so I was him for. Did you see my Halloween costume? Was it last year? 2 years ago? I was Edgar Allan Poe, and Avi was the Raven.
Cute.
He had like a glowing mask on, and like it was so funny. I'll have to post pictures of our Halloween costume from a couple years ago to our Patreon if anybody wants to see me as Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
That's my connection with ravens. They're just like the most badass freaking birds, right?
They are. Yeah, so
Crows,
metal.
ravens, yeah. So we're gonna get into that right now about like what is a crow, what is a raven, what are the differences. So let's get into that. A crow is a bird of the genus Corvus, or more broadly, a synonym for all of Corvus. The word, quote, crow is used as a part of the common name of many species. The related term raven is not linked scientifically to any certain trait, but is rather a general grouping for larger sized species of Corvus. The collective name for a group of crows is a murder.
I think
yeah.
the collective name for a group of ravens is called an unkindness.
Is it really?
Isn't that cool?
That is pretty cool. Are you an Incubus fan at all?
No.
They had an album back in like 2006, A Crow Left of the Murder.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's
Cool
dope.
name for an album, right? So what classifies a bird as a corvid? Corvids are distinguished by their robust, stocky build, strong, stout bills, plain or glossy plumage, and harsh, loud voices. This diverse family, which includes crows, ravens, and jays, is globally distributed, and many species are characterized by their intelligence, complex social structures, and omnivorous diets. Key traits include nostrils covered by bristles, the typical similarity in appearance between males and females, and the ability to cache food, a behavior vital for reforestation in some species. I don't know what it means to cache food, like store it.
Yeah,
They
to
mean, like,
store it
store
away like a
Okay.
squirrel
Interesting. So they just keep food in their beaks, I guess?
or hide it
Or
like
hide
in
it
hiding
away,
places.
maybe? Right. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So some key characteristics of the crow. Physical traits. Corvids are stoutly built, large passerine birds with strong, thick bills and powerful legs. While many temperate species have black or blue plumage, some are pied, which means they're black and they're white. So that could be why we were seeing the white beak on that illustration in Joseph's book. Maybe they have some of them have the white beaks. And many tropical species are brightly colored. The sexes generally look alike in color and size. And as far as vocalizations for, I guess, the crows, corvids are known for their harsh, loud, resonant voices.
I heard that if you are, we'll get to befriending crows later, but if you hear them talking at each other, if you hear the crows really going at it, and it's like a group, that group of crows is like teenage boys.
Yeah.
They're out to cause trouble. They're getting
Uh-oh.
into shenanigans, okay? Because typically what I've heard is crows will mate, and the older, more mature crows, it'll just usually be one or two. Whereas if you get this big ass group, that's a gang, okay,
Okay.
of rambunctious crows.
Okay.
So,
Yo, I saw a TikTok. It's so weird. Like, I'm seeing all this, like, I get a lot of crow stuff on my TikTok regularly. I don't know. It's just because, like, I have an interest. Like, I've always wanted to befriend the crows.
me too.
But I know, but there are some repercussions if you do this. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Because
Oh.
once you start becoming their friend, if you don't deliver on a certain day, they're going to turn on you.
That's like
They're
a
gonna-
fae thing.
They're gonna turn on you. Exactly. Crows, I'm convinced crow are the fae. So this one guy on TikTok, I saved the video, I'll have to send it to you. He befriended the crows, he was feeding them every day, and he skipped a day. And he came out and he's like, the one day I didn't feed them, they shat all over his car. Only his car. Everywhere else surrounding the car was fine. Just his car.
Oh my God.
All over it.
Oh my God.
So listen, if you're gonna want to befriend the crows, you have to make a commitment, because once you're one of them, they're relying on you to come through with the treats
goods.
every day.
Was
Exactly.
it one crow or a mated pair, or was it a gang?
It was a gang of crows.
Oh no. See, that's
They
why we put this
fucked his
information out
car.
there.
Yeah, exactly. They fucked his car. So listen, if you want to be part of the crow gang, you're gonna have to deliver on a daily basis. You can't be skipping days. Okay? It's not like
Okay.
leg day that you're just like lazy and don't want to do it. Like,
Yeah.
no.
This is dedication. This is like the Magus, but
You're
in real
in
form,
for
and it'll
life.
shit on your car.
Yeah, exactly. So just keep that in mind if you want to befriend
Good
the crows.
point.
Okay. Okay. So getting back to some of the behavioral traits, they're very intelligent. Okay. Many corvids are highly intelligent, exhibiting complex social behaviors and problem solving skills. They like puzzles, okay? I've heard that they like puzzles. They can pretty much play fetch, bring stuff back and forth to you. They leave you treats. If you leave them trinkets, they will leave you trinkets, vice versa. They often have well-developed social organizations. Like Kristina said, they have gangs. They got gangs with strong pair bonds that can be lifelong. Corvids are omnivorous and adaptable, eating a wide range of foods from seeds and insects to even small birds and even eggs. Many species store food in caches, a behavior that helps them survive in colder climates and, like we said before, contributes to forest regeneration. I'm not sure what it means by it contributes to forest regeneration, like how caching food would help with that. Do you have an idea?
I'm guessing if it's like seeds and they take
Okay.
the seeds from one place to another and hide them, maybe those seeds grow.
Okay, yeah, good point. I didn't think of that, but that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And then some examples of corvids are, we have the crows, which are often large black birds, ravens, known for their powerful beaks and shaggy throat feathers and a distinctive wedge or diamond-shaped tail in flight. Then we have jays, which can be more colorful than crows, with vibrant blues, greens, yellows, and grays. And then we have the magpies, another well-known member of the corvid family. Doesn't say too much about them, I guess, with the physical traits, but I don't know, maybe we'll get into them a little bit later too.
I can see how the magpie that does that, like, talk. These
Yeah.
corvids just like to chatter,
They
don't they?
do. They're very chatty.
Yeah. So what is the difference? So say you're standing outside, the sky's a little overcast, and from the corner of your eye you spot spot a dark bird gliding above you. And you're thinking, is that a crow or is that a raven? It's a common question. And not just for birders, people who are into birds. These two birds have circled our myths and superstitions for centuries. But while they look similar at first glance, the difference between them is worth knowing, especially if you're paying attention to the signs. So let's start with the basics. Physically, ravens are bigger. They have a heavier build, a shaggy throat, a wedge-shaped tail that fans out like a diamond in flight, whereas crows are smaller, sleeker, with rounded tails, and more of a flappy flight pattern, quick and direct. You can also tell them apart from the sound. I included a little cutout here. This image I have in my book of shadows, but I wanted to put it here because it kind of puts out in a little grid form the American crow versus the common raven. So the American crow has this straight beak. It's generally smaller. The raven has a slightly pointed, like downturn beak, and like nasal feathers that extend over it. The crow will do short rhythmic caws and has these smooth neck feathers, whereas that raven has that shaggy neck and it'll croak like
Oh
like,
my God. Going back to TikTok, there's a guy on there. I forget his handle. It might be like Ragnarok or Rag or something like that. He's got a crow and it says, it talks and it says tickle tickle. Have you heard that? Have you seen that guy? You haven't seen that guy? It goes tickle tickle in a really deep voice. It is the creepiest fucking shit.
That's kind of scary.
It's scary. Yeah, but it's like, I'm gonna have to send you that. It freaked me out. I was like,
please do.
Tickle. Yeah.
And then as far as their flight pattern, you're going to see crows constantly flapping to stay in flight. They have a fan-shaped tail with shorter primaries. And the raven is going to soar and glide and do a little more acrobatics in the air. They have a wedge-shaped tail and longer primaries. So that crow gives off the classic nasally caw, whereas ravens have a deeper, throatier croak, almost like something echoing out of a cave. Are you finding the tickle tickle?
I need to show this to you right now. It's
Okay.
so fucking creepy. Okay, wait.
I'm not doing tickle tickles. Tickle tickle. Good boy.
Kristina, your face. She's like, what?
That's a demon.
That's a raven.
Play it again.
Yeah, it goes tickle tickle.
Tickle tickle tickle.
That's the guy. Wait,
Yeah, I think we just go straight on the hill.
let it loop.
I'm not doing tickle tickles. Tickle tickle. Good boy. I don't know, mate.
That sounds like a voice changing.
Tickle tickle tickle. Tickle tickle tickle.
Yo,
That's a no for me.
can you imagine walking through a forest at night and hearing that echoing?
No.
Tickle tickle.
Oh
I think
my.
I would just die right then.
That was
that
unexpected.
Right? I told you. I saw that for the first time and my mind was blown. I was like, what? I didn't know they could talk like that.
I didn't know either. They're so smart. At least it's
Yeah.
not like
You're being audited.
Yeah, but oh my God. I will post that over on the our Instagram if anybody wants to see his handle.
That's
He's got a whole
terrifying.
bunch of videos. I think he has
I
another
gotta follow
one,
him.
a magpie too, and they like I don't think the other one talks like that, but like they like kind of like talk back and forth to each other. It's pretty fucking cool.
I need to follow this guy. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It makes
Wait,
me
let me-
want to raven even more. That thing is huge, by the way. That thing has to be at least 2.5 feet tall.
Yeah,
Sitting on
this
his shoulder.
guy is it
And I don't know if we get into how heavy they are, but I'm curious as to
They're-
like the weight of a bird like that.
They look huge.
They
I
do,
think
but they
this-
have to be light enough to be able to pick themselves into the air, to get
Right.
flying.
I think his name is Nick Crawford.
Okay.
And he rescues ravens, rooks, and crows. His description.
Awesome.
So yeah, he's got other birds. That one's name I think is Rags or like Ragnarok or something.
Cute.
His
It's
rescue.
interesting how the birds like vocal it's gonna be a deep raven voice, I guess, coming out of the crow, but the guy has a deep voice also.
Right. Yeah, you thought his voice was when he was saying tickle tickle, you were like, oh, I was like, no, that's just the guy. That's just the guy.
But still, when he actually
But it's-
when the bird said it, still shocked.
You know what I'm wondering? I'm wondering if the bird, because like the owner also has a deep voice. I'm wondering if the bird is in essence kind of trying to imitate the deepness of the guy's voice, so that's why it
Yes.
sounds like that.
Yes.
It's scary as fuck though. Either way.
Yes, agreed. But while those are the visual and auditory differences, the real magic is in their symbolism. Crows are often tied to cleverness, trickery, and transformation. They're curious, social, and among the most intelligent animals on Earth. You'll hear stories about them recognizing faces, solving puzzles, even leaving shiny little trinkets for humans they've bonded with. In folklore, the crow often appears in moments of change, markings at crossroads, a revelation, a shift from one phase to another. And ravens, on the other hand, carry weight. They're quiet watchers, often connected with mystery, endings, memory, and deep introspection. Where the crow might guide you through a tricky situation, the raven might show up when you're standing on the edge of something bigger than yourself, something unknown or inevitable. That said, in magical texts and oral folklore, the names crow and raven are often used interchangeably. In some religions, especially where only one species is common, the bird becomes a stand-in for both types of symbolism. The important part is not just what you call it, but how it makes you feel when it appears.
Is it Crow Planet the name of a blog or something?
I think it's a book.
It's a book. Okay. So I guess this is the interview from Lyanda Lynn Haupt. So this says, let's dive into the remarkable insights of author and naturalist Lyanda Lynn Haupt, whose book Crow Planet, Essential Wisdom from the Urban Wilderness helps us understand our complex relations with crows, especially those that share our cities, our streets, and even our backyards. Let's start with the concept of crowness. In Haupt's view, crows have become not just part of our environment, but emblematic of it. 50 years ago, in cities like Seattle, spotting even a couple dozen crows in one place was rare. Now, urban crow roosts number in the thousands. People sometimes ask, where did all these crows come from? As if their presence is sudden. But the truth is, it's the natural consequence of urban expansion, where native biodiversity has been replaced by hard, concrete, simplified landscapes and structures that push out all but the most adaptable creatures. Crows, being omnivorous, intelligent, and fearless, thrive where others cannot. So we live on what Haupt calls Crow Planet, a world shaped by two truths. One, that many native species are disappearing, replaced by a few ultra-successful survivors like the crow, and two, that no matter how urban our settings become, we are still part of the wild world, and that wild world is still part of us. Crows remind us of that daily. One of the more talked about studies in the field of Corvid cognition comes from the University of Washington. Researchers found that crows remember individual human faces, especially the ones they don't like. That's why they say if you go and tell the crows who's bullying you, they're going to go fuck that person up. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. During the study, scientists who have previously trapped and banded the birds wore caveman masks while walking around campus. Later, other students donned the same masks, and the crows dive-bombed them, scolding them with fury. As a control, some students wore Dick Cheney masks and were entirely ignored by the crows. Haupt laughs at this, but she adds that recognition likely goes just beyond faces. Like humans, crows likely process people as a whole, with clues from body language, gait, sound, and presence. And it's not just crows. Other birds like pigeons can also recognize regular feeders in parks. But crows take it further, possibly remembering humans for years, holding grudges, and keeping some of us on their lifelong, quote, bad lists. Like,
Nice.
birds have shit lists too.
That's
like,
right.
literally, like that guy I told you about.
The shit list.
They shat all over his car because he forgot to feed them one day. So still, their aggression is rarely unprovoked. Haupt explains that crows become defensive during nesting season. If a human wanders too close to their nest or chicks, they'll be met with scolding, swooping, and possibly a few pecks. This isn't malicious, it's protective parenting. Once their fledglings are grown, crows typically calm down, and if you behave respectfully, you might just get yourself removed from their shit list eventually. Now, some ask, if crows live among us, feast on our waste, and even adjust their behavior to our presence, are they really wild anymore? For Haupt, the answer is still yes. Crows are not pets, not escapes from domestication. Even like Alice said in the book, right? They're not pets, they're familiars. They're native, autonomous beings. They choose to live among us. They could leave if they wanted to, but they've adapted. That means that they deal with cars, fast food scraps, and stress just like we do. They suffer for their urban proximity too, especially hatchier birds who die in alarming numbers on city streets. And city food is not the healthiest, but the trade-off for now seems to benefit the crows. Which brings us to the question of zoopolis. Okay, so zoopolis is a term Haupt uses to describe cities as overlapping habitats for both humans and animals. Can we design urban spaces to better accommodate more wildlife, not just crows? Haupt believes the answer is yes, but it requires intentional planning. Right now, cities mostly support a limited roster: crows, pigeons, starlings, robins. But when we reduce concrete, increase native vegetation, add layered botanical structures, and limit impervious surfaces, we start to see an increase in more sensitive bird species like warblers, thrushes, and even woodpeckers. That said, designing cities with better biodiversity doesn't mean encouraging more crows. In fact, the goal is often to create urban spaces that are less favorable to overrepresented species like crows and more habitable for those who've been pushed out. Urban wildlife planning also applies to mammals. In Chicago, for instance, coyotes now make parts of the city their permanent home. Haupt advocates for a balance, encouraging coexistence without encouraging conflict. Simple actions like securing trash cans, bringing in pet food at night, and not leaving pets outdoors can go a long way in maintaining that boundary between wild and domestic. And of course, there's the question of why crows still unsettle some people. Why are they feared? Crows have long been associated with death and misfortune. Part of that is myth. Part of it is memory. Before the Civil War, crows were seen scavenging battlefields. During plagues, they fed on the bodies left out in the streets. These grim associations linger. Add in their dark feathers, sharp cries, and piercing eyes, and the symbolism becomes heavy. But those who observe crows more closely know a different side. Crows form complex social groups. They hold gatherings, what many believe are crow funerals, where they silently surround a fallen comrade. The behavior remains largely unexplained, but seems to express awareness, recognition, perhaps even grief. So next time a crow swoops over your head, watch how it moves. Listen to its call and ask yourself not what it means for the crow to live among us, but what it means for us to live among crows. Because on Crow Planet, we are not alone, never were.
How interesting.
Right.
Let's go around the world with the Crow people. The Crow are a Siouan ancestry and are believed to have originated from the Hidatsa tribe. Their traditional name is Apsaluga, which translates to children of the large beak bird, though they are commonly known as Crow. White settlers misinterpreted the name, leading to the common usage of Crow. Historically, the Crow were nomadic hunters and gatherers, adapting to the Plains Indian ways of life. They are renowned for their horsemanship and were known for having some of the largest horse bands in the northern plains. Beadwork is a significant part of Crow culture, adorning clothing, weapons, and horse gear. The Crow language is still spoken by a majority of tribes members, with 85% using it as their first language. The Crow Fair and Rodeo, held annually in August, is a major cultural event showcasing their traditions, including a powwow, rodeo, and parade. So I have a little creation story for you from the Yukuts creation myth, and this is from Birds in Legend, Fable, and Folklore. It's a book from a book. A tale of mountains and mischief. Long ago, before there were trees, rivers, or mountains, before even the land itself, there was only water. Maybe that's why it's connected with water on the card.
Oh, okay.
Endless and still, and in the middle of it all, near where Tulare Lake lies today, stood a single pole, rising high above the flood. Perched upon it, side by side, were a hawk and a crow. They sat there for ages, keeping each other company, gazing out across the nothingness, until even their patience wore thin. Tired of the emptiness, they decided to create life. First came the birds of the hunt, the kingfisher, the eagle, the pelican, all those who live off fish and water. Among them was a tiny duck, brave and curious. Cute. This little duck dove deep beneath the surface, far into the shadowy waters, and returned with a beak full of mud. But the dive cost her everything. She died, floating on the surface with the mud still clinging to her. From that small gift, the hawk and the crow began their great work. They gently took the mud from the duck's beak and started shaping the land. The hawk set off to the east, forming what would become the Sierra Nevada, while the crow shaped the western range, what we now call the Coast Mountains. They started the Tahicha Pass and moved northward, ridge by ridge, mountain by mountain, until they met at the foot of mighty Mount Shasta. But when they stepped back to admire their work, they noticed something odd. The crow's mountains were bigger, much bigger. The hawk narrowed his eyes. "You thief," he said. "You've been stealing the
Horse
earth."
thief!
"You've been stealing the earth from my bill to build your own range." The crow laughed in his claws, not even trying to deny it. The hawk, irritated but clever, chewed on some Indian tobacco, a sacred plant, and with it came wisdom, and with that wisdom came a plan. He reached down, grasped the entire mountain range, and spun them in a great circle. When he was done, the ranges had swapped places. His Sierra Nevada now stood proudly where the crow's coast range once was, stretched taller and longer across the land. And that, according to the Yukuts people, is why Sierra Nevada is greater than the coast range, and why crows will always be clever, but hawks will always have the final say. Another story from this same book was titled Ghost Dance Movement. This says nowhere is that more poetically illustrated than in the ghost dance movement of 1890, a spiritual revival among the Plains tribes in the Upper Missouri region. The crow, long held sacred by many Algonquin peoples, became the honored symbol of this movement. According to the ethnographic records of James Mooney, who studied the movement deeply, the crow was not only a symbolic figure, it was believed to be the direct messenger from the spirit world. Its black feathers, the color of shadow and death, made it a fitting leader for the great host of ancestral spirits. In Arapaho belief, the spirit world lies in the west, separated from our world by a great sea. Again, water. It was the crow who built the path across the sea. One pebble became a mountain. One mouthful of dust became a bridge of land. One beakful of grass birthed green meadows. One final flight, twigs in its bill, a tree rose, making a forested path between the world of the living and the world of the dead. That path was for the spirit host led by the crow to return to the living world. The ghost dance was not merely a call for change, it was a summoning, a reunion. The crow's symbolic role here is profound, not just a harbinger, but an architect of hope, a being who doesn't just cross between life and death, but connects the two with branches, grass, and stone. And while other birds had ceremonial roles, the magpie for the Paiutes, the eagle for its strength, none held the central place the crow did. This wasn't just symbolism, it was cosmology. And then a little bit about Carl Jung associated the raven with the archetype of the shadow, the dark side of our psyche. It represented the unconscious, its depths, darkness, and power. Our shadow, our raven, must be integrated to fully allow ourselves to be in touch with our most inner self. In this regard, the raven is very much a symbol of inner truth. In universal mythology, the raven is seen both as a solar hero and psychopomp and messenger of death. In some instances, the dark bird is even seen as a manifestation of the demiurge. He is a keeper of the great mysteries, one that, as opposed to other spirit animals, is not empowered by its ability to see in the dark, but its ability to become the darkness itself. Okay, Batman. Much of the respect and fascination with this dark bird stems from the Icarus aspect within every human being, the desire to rise above the mortal plane, to fly, to soar freely, and to touch the divine is what makes mortals admire the raven or crow and invest it with the functions of messengers for the gods. It is the same thing that makes them fear the bird. And that is from theoldcraft.com.
Nice. So getting into some cultural superstitions now, let's start in the shadowy forests and battlefields of Celtic Ireland, where one of the most enduring myths take flight. The Morrigan, a powerful war goddess, was said to shapeshift into a crow to observe and influence battles. She didn't just foretell death, she decided it. Her presence was a warning or a ripple in fate. If a crow was seen before combat, it was believed that Morrigan herself had taken form, watching from above. Soldiers understood this not just as a bad sign, but as an unavoidable turn in destiny. Some feared her, but some welcomed her, and all respected her. In this context, the crow wasn't simply a bad omen, it was a goddess's eyes. Move eastward, and you'll find Slavic traditions, where crows are sometimes seen as carriers of souls. In certain regions, it was believed that the soul of the dead could inhabit a crow temporarily, watching over loved ones before moving on. Killing a crow in these traditions could anger the spirit world or delay a soul's journey, and so crows were often left undisturbed. This reverence echoes a theme we'll see across cultures. Crows serve as liminal figures, go-betweens for this world and whatever comes next. So in Greek mythology, the crow was once a white bird, a companion of Apollo. When the crow delivered bad news, Apollo scorched it with his fury, turning its feathers black forever. From then on, crows carry the weight of hard truths, forever marked by their role as messengers of fate. They became symbols of the unwanted truth, a prophecy that couldn't be avoided. And then there's Japan, where the crow, or karasu, can carry very different meaning. Rather than harbingers of doom, crows are sometimes viewed as family guardians. The Yatagarasu, or three-legged crow, is a divine messenger of the gods and a symbol of guidance. It was said to have led Emperor Jimmu, the mythical first emperor of Japan, on his journey, marking the crow not just as a sign of fate, but as an agent of it. But not all crow lore is so noble. In Western European superstitions, particularly in Christianized regions, crows became entangled with ideas of witchcraft and evil. A flock of crows could be seen as a bad omens, a sign of plague, war, or death. Some believe that witches could transform into crows, like Maria, right? Or just like the Morrigan. Or is it Morrigan or Morrigan?
I think that's like Hecate, Hecate.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to, however you want to say it.
The Morrigan, or that just kept crows as familiars. The association with darkness, death, and the unclean persisted through centuries of folklore. Norse tradition, where ravens take center stage, the god Odin, wise, mysterious, and always watching, had two ravens named Hugin and Munin, meaning thought and memory. Every day they flew out across the world and returned to whisper in his ear what they had seen. These birds weren't just pets, they were extensions of Odin's consciousness. They were his thoughts and memories, his eyes and his ears. Ravens in Norse myth symbolize wisdom, prophecy, and knowledge, but also the burden of knowing too much. The crow and the raven, McBain announces, are constantly connected in the northern mythologies with battle deities. How is it with you, ravens? Says the Norse raven song. Whence are you come with gory beak at the dawning of the day? You lodged last night, I ween, where you knew the corses were lying. The ravens also assist and protect heroes both in Irish and Norse myth. It was a lucky sign if a raven followed a warrior. And that was all from birds in legend, fable, and folklore. In Roman tradition, corvids weren't just seen as eerie or symbolic, they were instruments of divination. The flight and cries of birds like ravens, crows, and magpies were interpreted in a ritual practice called augury, where direction and behavior mattered greatly. For instance, hearing a raven from the east was considered auspicious, a good omen. A crow calling from the west? Maybe not so much. In his ode to Galatea, the poet Horace jokes that he'll act as, quote, provident augur, calling forth the raven from the east to override any bad signs from the crow. In his words, ere the weird crow, re-seeking stagnant marshes, predict the rainstorm, I'll invoke the raven, far from the far east, who, as the priestler croaker, shall overawe him.
Nice.
Essentially, he's saying if the crow brings bad omens, I'll make sure a lucky raven shows up to cancel it out.
Oh, dang. Okay.
So he could do that. A sort of spiritual override. This idea of reading fate through birds' flight paths would echo all the way down through European folklore. So much so that the phrase pedigree itself comes from the French pied de grue, or crane's foot, referring to the branching lines of a family tree that resemble the footprint of a bird. Our fate, quite literally, written in bird tracks.
Whoa.
That's interesting.
I like that. Okay.
Cool.
Never knew.
Never knew that either.
Over in China, the crow takes on a fiery celestial role. The legendary three-legged crow, known as the Sunzu, lives in the sun. In some myths, there were 10 of these crows, each representing a sun, and they took turns crossing the sky. But one day, they all flew at once, scorching the earth. In response, the archer Hu Yi shot down 9, leaving just 1. In this tradition, the crow is not a creature of death or trickery, but one of solar power, transformation, and balance, a cosmic force that must be respected. In Slavic folklore, the crow walks the line between fear and reverence. In some tales, they are seen as witches in disguise, watching from above or warning of danger. In others, they carry the spirits of the dead, ancestral beings returning for a visit, or lingering to protect the living. As such, crows were treated with caution, sometimes even venerated, as harming one could disrupt the soul's journey. In indigenous North American cultures, crows and ravens appear in a wide range of roles, depending on the tribe. In many Pacific Northwest traditions, raven is the creator, and the one who brought light to the world, shaped the land, and taught humans how to survive. He's clever, mischievous, and powerful, a cultural hero. In other traditions, crow is more of a trickster, a shapeshifter who disrupts, teaches, and plays by his own rules. But in both roles, crow is respected, not feared. He brings transformation. He changes the story. And that's what makes crows and ravens so unique. In one place, they're death omens. In another, they're messengers of light. They're always somewhere in between this world and the next, walking the margins of myth. They are the storytellers, the watchers, the shapeshifters, the ones who fly between what was and what is to come. After moving through the Morrigan in Celtic lore, Apollo's punishment of the white crow in Greek myth, and solar crow of Chinese cosmology, we arrive at the Christianization of the crow and raven mythology in Europe. Under the influence of Christian teaching, particularly in the Middle Ages, Odin's sacred ravens, symbols of thought and memory, were gradually rebranded as devil's birds. With the spread of Christianity, the traits once revered in these birds, intelligence, mystery, and otherworldliness, became cause for suspicion. Even the magpie, a distant cousin of the Corvid family.
Yo, when COVID first came out, did you keep accidentally calling it Corvid?
Yes. Now I can't say Corvid. I say COVID.
Me too.
The Corvid family was said to carry devil's blood in its tongue, and its chattering was considered a bad omen. Farmers believed hearing a magpie meant illness or misfortune was on its way, and would counteract the ill luck with rustic charms or protective gestures. And then there was the old belief that European crows disappeared in midsummer because they were visiting hell. According to this tale, once a year during the molting season, all crows go down to hell to pay tribute to the devil.
Yo, they should make a movie, like, you know how they had All Dogs Go to Heaven? They should have another movie called All Crows Go to Hell.
I like that.
And then, like, it just be like the crow party.
Hell yeah.
A midsummer
soundtrack by Tenacious D.
Yeah.
A story possibly inspired by the birds' seasonal silence and disappearance as they shed their feathers and grow new ones. It's a fascinating twist on a natural phenomenon, a quiet season turned into a supernatural pilgrimage. Whether it's true or not, one thing is for sure. Humans have always projected their fears, hopes, and beliefs onto crows, and this myth is one of the most colorful examples of that ongoing story. Even nursery rhymes didn't escape. You've likely heard the old counting rhyme: 1 for sorrow, 2 for mirth, 3 for a funeral, 4 for birth. This rhyme, and its many variations, is one of the most widely known pieces of English crow lore. Depending on how many crows you see at once, your day or your fate is predicted. It's whimsical, yes, but also haunting in its presence. People still count crows today, half joking, half hoping. Or they name their band after them.
I was gonna say that. Is that where Counting Crows got the name for their band? I never knew what the name of the band meant. I thought it was just something like, you know, like most bands name their shit after like an inside joke or something.
Yeah.
Like, I never knew what that was all about. But I just found the rest of the poem to the thing that you were just saying, like the 1 for sorrow, 2 for mirth, 3 for funeral, 4 for birth. It goes up to 13.
Oh,
okay?
whoa.
Yeah.
Go
so
ahead.
after 4 for birth, it goes 5 for silver, 6 for gold, 7 a secret never to be told, 8 for a wish, 9 for a kiss, 10 a bird you must not miss, 11 for hope, 12 for health, 13 beware of the devil himself.
Cool. I really like that. That's cool.
That's from erinshaden.medium.com. She's got a whole post on the crow, so I will link that in our show notes.
Yeah, perhaps that's the root of it all. Crows make us uneasy, not because they're evil, but because they know things. They arrive in moments that feel heavy. They linger in graveyards. They call out at dusk. They watch. Whether you're a Celtic warrior or a 21st century commoner, it's hard to shake the feeling that a crow sees something you don't. But just as often, crows are symbols of wisdom, cleverness, of survival in indigenous American folklore, particularly among the Hopi, the Haida, and Tlingit.
I listened to this podcast called Stinas, and they talk about the Haida a lot. I had never heard of the Haida before that podcast.
Interesting. Where in the Americas are they located?
I always laugh because at the intro of every episode they go, brought to you by something in Minnow Beats Whale, which is in like the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, okay. Maybe
so it's all like Pacific Northwest kind of lore in that podcast. It's really freaking cool. So, yeah.
Okay, yeah. In these cultures, crow is not a villain, but a trickster, a culture bringer, sometimes even a creator. But we'll get deeper to that in a little bit. What's most important is to remember that the crow isn't just one thing. It's an omen of change, a watcher on the edge of what is and what is to come. In many ways, crows have been our long-standing messengers, not of doom, but of transformation and transition. They accompany us through thresholds of life and death, of war and peace, of ignorance and understanding.
So long before GPS and sextants, before nautical charts and compasses, there were birds, sharp-eyed, instinct-driven, skybound creatures that served as some of humanity's first navigational tools. Among these feathered guides, crows and ravens held a special place. In ancient India, navigators were known to keep birds on board, crows in particular, to help them search for land. One early Buddhist tale, the Bavaru Jataka, speaks of, quote, a crow serving to direct navigators in the four quarters, acting almost like a living compass. If the crow flew out and returned, there was no land. If it didn't return, land was near. But how long did they wait before it didn't return? Did they give it like 15 minutes, like an hour? Like, what are we talking? A full day? Like, how long are they waiting around for this bird to return before they're like, okay, I guess it's time to move on. Or
Well, depending on what Brasidia Ryan had to say, maybe like 3 to 5 days.
okay, that's a long time to be waiting around for a bird to come back. No,
Yeah, yeah.
all right. So the Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder echoed this practice in his accounts of the seafarers of Taprobin, now known as Sri Lanka. He described how these mariners did not rely on stars to guide their ships. Instead, they brought birds with them on long sea voyages. When lost or uncertain, they would release a bird into the sky and watch its flight. Whichever direction it flew, there was land, and so the sailors would adjust course and follow. This practice feels strikingly familiar to the story of Noah and the Ark, found in Babylonian and Hebraic traditions. After the floodwaters began to recede, Noah released first a raven, then a dove, to seek out dry land. The connection is clear. Birds, especially corvids, have long been our partners in surviving the unknown. In the ancient Aegean, when the people of Thera set sail for Libya, a flight of ravens went with them. The birds flew ahead of the ships, guiding the way. In this, the ravens became more than companions. They were way-showers, pathfinders, omens of direction and arrival. Even the Gauls, as recorded by the Roman historian Justin, were said to have relied on the flight.
Justin?
Wait, what?
Just Justin? That's so random.
Did I? Oh.
No, you
Like,
read it
just
correctly. It's just funny that
Okay.
name is a Roman historian,
Yeah.
not like a Roman man named Justin.
No, a historian. Yeah,
Okay.
a historian named Justin. Not just like some random guy, Joe Schmo Justin.
Justin. Okay.
Just some rando named Justin was said to have relied on the flight of birds when invading Illyricum, a region that now spans parts of the Balkans. The birds' trajectories were believed to hold the secrets of terrain, timing, and safe passage. In Japan, legend tells of Emperor Jimmu, the nation's first divine ruler. In the 7th century BCE, he is said to have marched into battle under the guidance of a gold-colored raven, a celestial sign believed to carry the will of the gods. The bird became so enshrined in myth that it remains a powerful symbol in Japanese culture to this day. Across time and continents, corvids, especially ravens and crows, were more than messengers or scavengers. They were navigators and guides, trusted watchers of sky and sea. And in their flight, people saw possibility, hope, and a path forward. So the next time you see a crow watching from a telephone wire or circling overhead, consider that they were once used as maps, the oracles, and the lifelines of the open ocean. And maybe in some quiet way, they still are. It's like when we did the doves episode, how people now just see, or pigeons were lumped in with our doves episode, but like how we were talking about how the pigeons now are like disregarded as these dirty birds, just like, just crowding cities, just scavenging off people's scraps. And, they were once used for a purpose, like to carry messages in war. And,
Yeah, they're pretty baller. Absolutely.
Right. Okay,
Here we go.
tell us about crow funerals.
So yes, the Ologies podcast actually has a whole episode about Corvid thanatology, which are crow funerals. So let's look into these Corvid funerals. If you've ever seen a group of crows gathering suddenly, loud, agitated, circling around a lifeless body, what you're witnessing isn't just noise, it's a crow funeral. Dr. Kaylee Swift, a behavioral ecologist who earned her PhD from the University of Washington, has dedicated years of research to understanding how crows respond to death in social networks. Her work explores what's called Corvid thanatology, the study of death behaviors in corvids, including crows, ravens, magpies, and jays. What makes crow funerals so remarkable is these gatherings are not random. When a crow encounters a dead crow, it will often call loudly, drawing in dozens, sometimes hundreds of others to the site. These arriving crows do not interact with the corpse in the way a predator might. They don't scavenge. They don't touch the body. Instead, they gather, they watch, and they observe. So what are they doing? Dr. Swift's research suggests they're learning. Crows are incredibly intelligent, capable of facial recognition, memory, and even using tools. When one of their own dies, especially in an environment associated with humans, they appear to treat the location as dangerous. The gathering is less about mourning in an emotional sense and more about assessing threats. It's a form of social learning, allowing them to better avoid danger in the future. To test this, Swift conducts experiments using taxidermied crow bodies. She paired these with masked human figures so that crows would begin to associate a specific, quote, person with danger. The results were striking. Crows remembered the faces of that person. years later and would scold, mob, and avoid anyone wearing that same mask. So while the term funeral might sound sentimental, what's happening is highly strategic. It's not just about honoring the dead, it's about protecting the living. The crows aren't just grieving, they're gathering intelligence. Swift also notes that the way crows react depends on context. A dead pigeon, for instance, won't get the same reaction. It's the presence of a dead crow, a member of their species, possibly a known individual, that triggers this response. This shows us that their reaction is deeply social, not just biological. Yet, while this behavior has clear evolutionary benefits, it's not devoid of emotional resonance. Swift herself has said that it's possible, though not scientifically proven, that emotion plays a role too. After all, crows are capable of long-term bonds and complex social lives. Some have been seen sitting beside a body of a fallen mate or offspring for extended periods, quietly vocalizing or remaining still. In those moments, it's hard not to wonder what's going on in their minds. In some, crows hold funerals. They gather, they call, and not in superstition, not in myth, it's science. They mourn their own in ways we're only just beginning to understand.
Science, bro.
Science, bro.
Yeah. So I'm sure everybody's, begging to know how to befriend a crow. Like, we all see it on social media. We see other people doing it, and we want in on this fun. But what I
Tell
said
me.
before, it's not, this is a commitment. This is not something that you can just decide to do one day and then take it back. Okay.
Okay.
They're gonna shit on your car.
Okay.
So this article is by A.W. Olheiser, and this is titled "How to Befriend a Crow." So AW says, I was personally pulled into crow talk, samesies, back in June via algorithmic pestering after these videos had been appearing on my For You page for months. I began following about a half a dozen crow accounts. I was drawn in by ways in which the crows seemed to focus on their human friends, visiting their yards, watching them, flying alongside their cars. I began talking to my friends to see if they too were potential crow people. The results were promising. One offered to go immediately to the park with me to find some bird friends. My new semi-obsession made me wonder, is there a type of person who is particularly inclined to building a relationship with a wild corvid? I remember that in her 2019 book, How to Do Nothing, Jenny Odell writes about feeding her local corvids crow and crowson. The book is about escaping the clutches of the attention economy, and it occurred to me that maybe I wanted to feed crows as a meditative practice. Echoing this idea, Crow Talk creator Christy McManaman tells me crows are incredibly aware of their surroundings and have a way of observing us that I find so comforting. McManaman feeds a series of crows around Halifax, Nova Scotia. Her account at Crowds of Crows has nearly 125,000 followers. Her practice began in 2016 when she spotted a crow waiting daily outside the house of one of her clients. Now, a family of crows has learned to glide low along the road, following closely behind her car as she drives around her neighborhood. Yo, that would be the most badass thing, to just be driving and like a freaking gang of crows just following you around town.
How witchy.
Nobody would fuck with you. Okay?
Yeah.
Nobody. So the habit, which began as a last-ditch effort to get one last treat from McManaman, has now been reinforced by some intentional training. From there, I watched more videos and I went deeper down the crow rabbit hole. Crow behavior, I learned, varies family to family and region to region. As the humans behind Crow Talk educate viewers about their relationship with crows, they also document how individual these relationships can be. There are about 50 species of corvids around the world, and they behave differently from each other. They're not the only intelligent birds around, but in general, corvids are smart in a way that resonates deeply with humans because they're good at some of the things that we're good at, says Kevin McGowan, a Cornell ornithologist who has been studying crows for 35 years. A 2020 study published in Science found that they can think about their own thoughts. Crows can recognize individual human faces, associate them with friendliness or danger, and pass that knowledge along to their pals. Their social system is the most like Western human civilization of any animal that I know of, McGowan says. American crows, quote, have a family and a space that they defend, but they also have a neighborhood that they pay attention to, end quote. And crows will interact with larger groups of crows that they don't know as well, sort of the way how humans will engage with their communities beyond their closest relationships. But they're also cautious. Crows have been paying attention to individual people more than perhaps any other bird, McGowan adds. At first, this was mostly for their own protection, historically, particularly on the East Coast, the U.S. East Coast. American dwelling crows were shot at as vermin. Human interest in feeding them is relatively new. The crows hated McGowan when he first started studying them in the 1990s, he says, because he was climbing up in the trees to peer into their nests. They learned his face, his car, his routines, and they chased my car down the street, mobbing me, he says. After a particularly motivated crow spotted him far away on Cornell's campus and flew over to yell at him, he decided something needed to change. I wanted to make the crows like me, he says, and so I decided that I would start tossing peanuts to them, initially from a distance. Even the birds who knew him were extremely wary of approaching him for food at first, but eventually it worked. I had a friend who said that the crows must have had some kind of cognitive dissonance, like, oh no, the tree climbing guy is the peanut guy, he says. Now, the crow follows his car, stalks his walks, because they know he might have a treat for them. When we talked, Steinck was happy to outline for me how I might go about feeding some crows. First, she said, you have to find them. That box was already checked for me. A neighbor had clued me into a family that lived down the block and frequented the tall trees growing in the alley behind my house. Then, she said, try to get them to approach the feeding location of your choice by leaving some treats. I put out dry cat food. As weeks passed, I peered out the back door of my townhome onto our roof deck, watching how my possible new friends reacted. They didn't come. Then it rained for a week. I was irritated that the crows seemed not to care that I had a story deadline. Okay, so he was doing this for research purposes, it sounds like. They do have preferences in food, Steinck says. If you put out a pile of different foods, like a little buffet for the crows, they're all going to kind of hone in on something. Dottie likes scrambled eggs best. Pretty much every crow Steinck has met will go for a raw hamburger. Steinck suggested I start to offer peanuts, unsalted, maybe cashews, which would be a delicacy. The real problem I was encountering, though, may not have been the food at all. Crows were recommended to me through an algorithm designed to keep me engaged, and I had made the mistake of deciding to turn my new interest into online content, pressuring myself to fast-track my crow friendships. But, as Odell's connection to crows suggested, the real keys to befriending them are things that are the opposite of what gets views. Patience, routine. The crows need to learn that you're not a threat, that food is safe, and that it will be there every day. Crows go viral for bringing their human friends gifts, but the reality of being a friend to corvids reflects a deeper responsibility. Like I said before, right? It's a commitment you need to make.
Yeah.
McGowan has been encouraging humans to feed crows for decades, but he cautions that there are ways for this practice to go wrong. What happens is that people get too into this, and it makes the crows a nuisance. Leaving out too much food can lead crows to mob your neighborhood constantly. Just as the crows talk to each other, human crow friends need to be aware of how their habits affect their human neighbors. For her part, Steinck is already preparing for what she knows will happen when she eventually moves away from her apartment. I might cry talking about it, she says. They will continue to come to the balcony looking for food for years. They might not come as often, but they will always check. She has a plan for this. Other friends in her apartment complex are also trying to befriend the crows now. They're working out a nearby feeding spot that can be collectively maintained by the building's crow fan club.
Oh my God.
I recently got rid of the dry cat food and bought a platform feeder and a bag of unsalted peanuts. I hope the crows in the tree down the block notice.
Cute. Oh.
Right.
So if you're going to make this commitment, what are the best ways to attract your corvid friends? So offer them those treats, a favorite food that you might have in your house that will attract the ravens, or small like pellet for dog and cat food, those eggs, unsalted peanuts and nuts, seeds, fruits and veggies, and even chicken and other meats, because they will eat that. This is by far the most effective technique for how to attract ravens or crows. If you really want to attract ravens to your garden, try to think about it from the bird's point of view and see what there is to scare off ravens. This could be anything that resembles a large animal or person.
AKA a scarecrow?
Yeah, or a large dog that I have. That's probably why we don't have crows here.
Yeah,
Because
I
they
never
see the dog.
thought of the name Scarecrow. But, like, literally, it's put there to scare the crows.
Exactly. Yeah.
Never thought of that.
Don't expect the raven to feel safe here if you have these things. Ravens may love cat food, but this type of food is also particularly appetizing to raccoons. So if you don't want raccoons visiting your yard, perhaps it's best to steer clear of the cat food. You can try other foods like food scraps. Ravens are opportunistic omnivores, so they will try anything. They quickly realize that food is on offer at a particular place and will return for food regularly. All you need to do is find out what they like, then be consistent. Make sure the raven knows that they can come to your lawn for food. It's also a good idea to keep the feeding schedule regular. Ravens are known to enjoy bird baths. That's adorable. I love our bird bath and watching them. It makes me so happy. Like they're there. They're there.
I think I want to put one on the side of our house because Punky likes to both the cats like to hang out outside that bay window, and it'll give them some more cat TV to enjoy.
I really enjoy turning into an old person just watching birds in the bird bath.
Same. The only thing that with the bird baths is like, does it collect like a lot of poop? Like you gotta clean it regularly, probably.
I dump it out like every 3 days because I have my drip system hooked up. So I have like a line into the bird bath, so it fills it with new water every day. So I dump it and just spray it with the hose. They love a bird bath apparently, but not just any bird bath, but a bath that is long, dark, and smooth. Interesting. They enjoy drinking water and bathing. However, are they scrying? Do they like a dark bowl to gaze into and see themselves in the mirror? Do they have a little ego?
That's cool. I like that.
However, they are known to leave their dead prey there if they don't eat it right away. So keep an eye on that bird bath. These corvids are famous for their intelligence, but did you know that they are notoriously confident as well? Thanks to this confidence, it's easier to earn a raven's trust than other birds. The main thing is to approach cautiously so you don't startle the birds. You want a raven to learn to see you as gentle and as a food provider. Be patient and consistent, and you'll soon have these confident corvids eating from the palm of your hand. The other thing you can do is maybe put a little bowl out and start leaving little baubles and very shiny little trinkets. That they love to collect that stuff. If you don't want to leave food out, you can try that.
And I heard they bring you some cool stuff too.
Yeah. So as we mentioned earlier, the raven is often associated with dark omens. So to dispel some of this dark shroud, let's take a look at some facts about the ravens. Like any mother, a raven will be fierce when defending their young. They will usually be successful when trying to defend their young and chasing away potential threats. They don't always wait until they have to defend them. Ravens will often go into full attack mode, flying at any perceived threat. The raven will lunge themselves at these potential predators and use their large bills to attack. Like most birds, ravens see humans as a threat, but will not usually be aggressive unless you are too close to the nest. Will a raven kill a chicken? Ravens are opportunistic, but prefer their food already dead. They will eat carrion, dead stock in fields, and possibly attack a wounded animal or a defenseless chick. They are unlikely to kill anything the size of a chicken.
So why do ravens symbolize fear and evil? Well, we have the Europeans to thank for that. They would identify a raven as being a more benign or evil force in the disguise of a raven. Whether due to its size, dark plumage, or meat-eating tendencies, it's hard to tell. It's more likely that it was a combination of all these characteristics. The French would say that the raven housed the souls of an evil priest, and the wicked nuns would come back as crows. The Germans believed that the ravens were damned souls reincarnated as ravens. The Swedes believed that the eerie croak of a raven during the night was sinister. Tickle, tickle. You're going to hear that in your sleep now.
I don't like that.
Oh my god. They believed that it was the calls of murdered people who didn't receive a proper burial. The Danish also held a fearful view of ravens. They believed that ravens encased an exorcist spirit, and it was advised against looking up at them. If a raven had a hole in its wing and you looked through it, you could turn into a raven yourself. It's like a hagstone or something.
That's cool.
Right? In more Eastern cultures, the raven did not have any evil reputation. Even among the Greeks, ravens were more messengers from the gods. The Celts believed the goddesses of warfare took a raven form during a battle. Odin, the Viking god, was always accompanied by 2 ravens. They flew all over the world each day, reporting to Odin in the evening. In Tibet, ravens are also considered as messengers between gods and humans. The Chinese blame the raven for poor weather in forests. They also believe the ravens and the poor forest weather was preemptive of a god passing by. As a further testament to their intelligence, ravens are also capable of imitating human speech.
Tickle, tickle.
Hence the tickle, tickle, right? When ravens have been in captivity, there are reports that they are even more apt at human speech than parrots. Ravens are also known to mimic toilet flushes, car engines, and even other bird calls.
Whoa.
Wild. The raven can also imitate wolves' calls and even fox noises. This is done as a clever bid to get them to tear open a carcass that they cannot do themselves. That's pretty savvy, I must say. They sometimes use sticks, rocks, pine cones, or even a golf ball as a toy to play with each other or by themselves. Ravens will often try to taunt other animals, again, just for the playfulness of it all. They are the trolls of the bird world, right?
That's why we
Now
love them.
begs the question, in pop culture literature, why is a raven like a writing desk? This fun riddle is from the Mad Hatter's Tea Party, a whimsical and illogical gathering from Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, featuring the Mad Hatter, the March Hare, and a perpetually sleepy dormouse. The characters famously engage in a, quote, everlasting tea time, constantly moving seats to find a clean cup and plate, resulting in chaotic and nonsensical conversations with Alice. The riddle is posed by the Mad Hatter in Chapter 7 of the book To Disorient Alice. The Mad Hatter's riddle, why is a raven like a writing desk, from Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, was originally intended to be unanswerable, but after being flooded with letters from readers demanding an answer, Carroll added one in a later edition. So Carroll says, because it can produce a few notes, though they are very flat, and it is never put with the wrong end in front. So this wordplay in the answer relies on the homophone, quote, notes for musical or written notes, and the pun that, quote, never sounds like raven backwards, though a publishing error obscured this joke until later. The punchline is that the word never was ironically put with the wrong end in front when Carroll used it in the answer. This joke was missed because of that publishing error that corrected the spelling, though it was later revealed in a 1976 edition. The punchline was missed because it was misspelled, basically.
Right.
So some other suggested answers are Aldous Huxley's B and N. The writer Aldous Huxley proposed that the answer was because there is a B in both and an N in neither. And then Edgar Allan Poe wrote on both. Sam Lloyd suggested this answer referencing Edgar Allan Poe's famous poem, The Raven, and the writing desk that he most likely used. So speaking of The Raven, a narrative poem by Edgar Allan Poe. It was first published in 1845 and tells the story of a grieving scholar tormented by a mysterious raven. The poem is a classic of Gothic literature, known for its supernatural atmosphere, musical language, and descent into madness.
And if you were lucky enough to be in Salem 2023, you got to see Enrique Iglesias perform this whole thing.
That's right. I have to say, that whole experience was the inspiration behind my Halloween costume that year, because Mark and Gina came with us, right? My cousins Mark and Mia.
Y'all were
and
dying.
Samantha. And the ongoing joke was that monologue that woman was reading, right? I think she was reading The Fall of the House of Usher.
Oh yeah, that's what it was.
It went on for literally like 2 freaking hours. It was so long and monotonous. And Mark was just like, if this doesn't end right fucking now.
And then his
gouge my
daughter
eye.
showed him the monologue, and like it just kept scrolling and never ended.
Yeah. So I actually had a whole book. I have a whole book of Edgar Allan Poe, like a compendium of all his works together, and I think The Fall of the House of Usher is one of the stories in that book. So when I dressed up as Edgar Allan Poe that year, and we had our Halloween party, Mark and Gina come over, right? Nobody knew what we were gonna be. Okay.
Yeah.
So I come out dressed like Edgar Allan Poe, and I had that whole book in my hand, and I start reading from it, and Mark is like, "Oh no, I'm not sitting through this again."
That is so funny.
No. Yeah, Edgar Allan Poe holds a special place in my heart.
Yes, he does.
And Enrique Iglesias. So, some of the key plot points about The Raven. Let's talk about the setting. The poem takes place on a dreary December midnight in a secluded chamber. The narrator, a scholar, is mourning the death of his beloved Lenore and is reading old books to distract himself from his sorrow. And the tapping, he's startled by this rapping at his chamber door and calls out for Lenore. He opens the door to find only darkness, but the tapping soon resumes, this time at his window. Now the Raven enters the chat. He opens the window. A large, ominous raven flies in and perches on a bust of Pallas, the Greek goddess of wisdom, above his door.
We should have Gen Z-ified this.
We should have. We really should have. The narrator, amused by the bird's stately and serious demeanor, asks for its name. The raven responds simply with the single haunting word, nevermore. A descent into madness. The narrator begins to engage the bird, asking it increasingly anguished, asking him questions about his lost love, Lenore. With each question, the raven responds, nevermore, fueling the narrator's despair and driving him further into madness. The final image. In the poem's conclusion, the narrator acknowledges that the raven, a symbol of his unending grief, is still sitting on the bust, and his soul, quote, shall be lifted nevermore. So, some of the major key themes of this poem are grief and loss. The poem's central theme is the agonizing, all-consuming sorrow over the death of a loved one. Madness, it explores the devastating psychological effects of grief, illustrating the narrator's descent from melancholy to ultimately hysteria. And then it explores the supernatural, the raven's mysterious and foreboding presence, the supernatural forces of or dark memories that torment the human psyche, and the power of memory. The raven's insistent nevermore demonstrates how memories of lost love can haunt and trap a person in endless despair. So, speaking of Poe, for all of our listeners out in Los Angeles, California, I wanted to give you guys something fun to do this spooky season. My brother Vin owns a theater out in LA called Mi Vida. It's one of the 3 theaters that he owns in like a chain of different locations.
Nice.
And right now he's actually hosting a production called Poetique, and this is an Edgar Allan Poe inspired immersive theater experience where guests are not just witnesses, but they're chosen participants. They're part of the play. Kind of like Sleep No More for anybody listening who's from New York City who's been to that production. I actually remember taking my brother with me to a showing of Sleep No More for my birthday a few years back, and he was so inspired by it that he took the concept of an immersive theater experience and he wrote his very own show using the works of Edgar Allan Poe as the basis. For anybody who's seen Sleep No More, you know that that's all based on the works of Shakespeare, specifically Macbeth, and Hitchcock's Rebecca. So my brother wrote and directed this entire production and is now hosting it at his very own theater. So here's a little bit of like the synopsis, I guess, that what you can expect for the show. Inside the manor, a desperate doctor races to complete a volatile cure. A host of tormented aristocrats unravel under the weight of guilt, hallucination, and dark secrets. As guests are guided room to room, their fates entwine with cursed lovers, deranged scientists, and a masked figure known only as the Red Death. Some may be pulled into secret experiment. Others may never be seen again. With chilling monologues, haunting dances, and forbidden chambers, Poetique invites you to dine with the damned, dance with the dead, and face the final breath of sanity. This show is a very exclusive experience as there are only about 35 slots per show, and the show is only scheduled to run through the end of November, so get your tickets now while you can. It just looks so cool, so I urge anyone who is local to Los Angeles, California, go out and see it. And if you go to the show and you happen to see my brother, tell him Justina sent you. And who knows, maybe he'll throw you a discount on your tickets. I don't know.
That is so impressive. How cool.
I have to show you the trailer to this. It's freaking wild. I will post that in our show notes for anybody who wants to check out the trailer. Yeah,
your brother is very creative. You have such a everyone's so creative.
Everybody's so
in the
creative.
Corvid family.
Yeah. So get your tickets at poetique.com. That's POEETIQUE.com. So .com. Check it out. Yeah.
Very cool. It sounds amazing, but being pulled into like a show is my worst nightmare.
Oh, it was mine too. But it's weird. Like when me and Avi first did Sleep No More, it was just the 2 of us, and I didn't know what to expect because I don't like haunted houses. I don't like people jumping out and scaring at me. I mean, I'll do them, but I don't like them. And I didn't know what to expect. But when we went through, something was just so captivating. It was almost like if I can explain it the best way I know how, it's almost like a waking dream. Like you go into this alternate reality and everything is kind of like you're almost a voyeur, okay? Because you have to wear these masks, you can't talk, you have to just observe what the dancers, the actors, and the story is doing. Cool. And each showing is like 3 loops, so you have 3 different opportunities to see different characters, or you can choose to see the same thing again. It's up to you. This is like a choose your own adventure, which is why I love it so much.
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
No more.
Yes,
Never
no more is no more. But if now you can go see poetique because it's kind of like the same vibe. If you're looking for a show with the same vibe, it's right up your alley. And you kind of leave a show like that feeling like you just woke up from a dream and everything is a little bit fuzzy.
That's weird.
It's very, it's bizarre. It's very strange. We actually took our friends, Leo and Leash, to one of the showings before they closed the show for good. And I said the same thing to my friend Leo when I was trying to explain to him what the show was like. And when we got out, he was like, you explained it like perfectly. Like I left there like, oh my God, I feel like I just woke up from a dream, but I don't really remember everything that happened. It's wild.
So do this sober. Like don't go into this with any substances in your system because you're going to want to be present.
And you're gonna want to be present, and you're gonna want to experience all the visceral things happening around you because there's a lot of different like lights and strobes and dancers swirling around you, and there's a lot going on. So
not two dancers and unitards twirling around a dilapidated house.
No, with 50-foot drops, you could fall through the bottom to the bottom of the floor.
I gotta listen to our Salem episode because
we need a recap.
It just puts me in such a good mood.
We need a recap.
Okay.
I know. We should listen to it together and then commentary on it.
Just relive it. Yeah.
I know.
So how smart are crows? Well, they're smarter than you think. This is by Anne-Marie Helmenstein, PhD, published last year, and she writes, crows, ravens, and jays belong to the Corvidae family of birds, and throughout history, people have marveled at their intellect and the intelligence of these birds. They are so smart, we might find them a bit creepy. It doesn't help that a group of crows is called a murder, that they are viewed by some as harbingers of death, or that the birds are clever enough to steal trinkets and food. A crow's brain is only about the size of a human thumb. Wow. So how smart are crows really? Well, they're apparently as smart as a 7-year-old child. Okay. While a crow's brain may seem small in comparison to a human brain, what matters is the size of the brain in relation to the size of the animal. Relative to the body, a crow's brain and primate brain are comparable. According to Professor John Marsloff of the University of Washington Aviation Conservation Lab, a crow is essentially a flying monkey.
Oh my God.
It's a friendly monkey or more of a fiend from the Wizard of Oz depends a lot on what you've done to the crow or to any of its friends. So they can recognize human faces. Can you tell one crow from another? In this respect, crows may be smarter than you because they can recognize individual human faces. Marslove's team captured crows, tagged them, and released them. Members of the team wore different masks. Crows would dive bomb and scold people wearing a mask, but only if the mask had been worn by somebody who had messed with them in the past. They also talk to each other. If you think two crows watching you and cawing at each other are talking about you, you're probably right. In Marslove's study, even crows that were never captured attacked scientists. How did the crows describe their attackers to other crows? Crows' communication is poorly understood. The intensity, rhythm, and duration of calls seems to form the basis of a possible language. And they remember what you did. It turns out crows can pass on a grudge to their offspring. Even subsequent generations of crows, like the Lachlan's.
Hold up. So you're saying that generational curses in the crow world are a thing?
Do you think Alice did that on purpose?
Oh my God.
Owens and crows that way? How interesting. Wonder if she knows that.
Very interesting.
The subsequent generations of crows harassed the masked scientists. So if you're wondering just how smart crows are, you may find this one disturbing. Another case of crow memory comes from Chatham, Ontario. Around 500,000 crows would stop in Chatham on their migration route, posing a threat to the farming community's crops. The mayor of the town declared war on the crows and began the hunt. Since then, the crows have bypassed Chatham, flying high enough to avoid being shot. This had not, however, stopped them from leaving droppings all over the municipality.
Wow.
They use tools and solve problems. While several species use tools, crows are the only non-primates that make new tools. In addition to using sticks as spears and hooks, crows will bend wires to make tools, even if they've never encountered wire before.
Wow. So
smart.
they're out there picking locks and shit.
Yeah. In Aesop's fable of The Crow and the Pitcher, a thirsty crow drops a stone into a water pitcher to raise the water level to take a drink. Scientists tested whether crows really are this smart. They placed a floating treat in a deep tube. The crows in the test dropped dense objects into the water until the treat floated within reach. They didn't select objects that would float in water, nor did they choose ones that were too large for the container. Human children gain this understanding of volume displacement around the age of 5 to 7. They can also plan for the future. Planning for the future isn't only a human trait. For examples, squirrels cache nuts to store food for lean times over the winter. Crows not only plan for future events, but consider the thinking of other crows. When a crow caches food, it looks around to see if it's being observed. If it sees another animal is watching, the crow will pretend to hide its treasure, but will really stash it in its feathers. The crow then flies away to find a new secret spot. If a crow sees another crow hiding a prize, it knows about this little game of the bait and switch and won't be fooled. Instead, it will follow the first crow to discover its new hoard.
I have a t-shirt design idea.
What?
Okay, so it needs to be a crow with a beak full of food, and the quote above its head is "Cash me outside." How about that? Make it happen.
Write it down. Write it down.
Write it down.
Outside. Oh, that was good.
It's past our bedtime.
I'm just picturing it with like a mouthful of French fries.
Oh my god.
They can adapt to new situations. Crows have adapted to life in a human-dominated world. We heard earlier about the crow planet, right? They watch what we do and they learn from us. Crows have been seen to drop nuts in traffic lanes so that the cars will crack them open. They will even watch traffic lights, only retrieving the nut when the crosswalk sign is lit. This in and of itself makes the crow smarter than most pedestrians because crows have been known to memorize restaurant schedules and garbage days to take advantage of prime scavenging times.
Wow. That's impressive.
I'm blown away.
They're smarter than most people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Adult people.
Yeah. People in power.
Yeah.
They understand analogies. Do you remember the, quote, analogy section of the SAT? While a crow is unlikely to outscore you on a standardized test, they understand abstract concepts, including analogies. Ed Wasserman and his Moscow-based team trained crows to match items that were the same as each other, same color, same shape, or same number. Next, the birds were tested to see if they could match objects that had the same relationship to each other. For example, a circle and a square would be analogous to red and green rather than to two oranges. The crows grasped the concept the first time without any training in concepts of, quote, same and different. They can outsmart your pets. Maybe. Cats and dogs can solve relatively complex problems, but they can't make and use tools. In this respect,
Punky can pick a fucking lock.
He can. Is he not a crow?
He can get into garbage cans, cabinets. You let him know what you want him to do and he'll do it for you. Jesus, this cat drives me insane.
In this respect, a crow is smarter than Fido and Fluffy. If your pet is a parrot, its intelligence is as sophisticated as a crow's. Yet, intelligence is complicated to measure. Parrots have curved beaks, so it's harder for them to use tools. Similarly, dogs don't use tools, but have adapted to work with humans to get their needs met, and cats have mastered humanity to the point of being worshipped. Which species would you say is the smartest? Modern scientists recognize it's particularly impossible to apply an intelligence test across different species because an animal's skill at problem solving, memory, and awareness depends on its body shape and habitat as much as its own brain. Yet, even by the same standards used to measure human intelligence, crows are super smart.
It said like you can't really compare, but cats versus crows. Cats are pretty smart.
But they can't make the tools.
I know. Well, all right. So some of the crows that we're going to talk about as familiars, specifically the ones in Maleficent. So Diablo appears to have a similar role to the Raven in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. However, he plays a larger role in the storyline and is in almost every scene in which Maleficent appears. In addition, unlike the Raven in Snow White, he is completely and genuinely loyal to her, and unlike the rest of her servants, he is competent and easily succeeds in his task to find Aurora, and sometimes notices things even Maleficent fails to, too. He is also the only one she genuinely cares about, and she's visibly horrified when she discovers him turned to stone. In return, he apparently cares a great deal for her, specifically seen when he fell into despair alongside her after her goons were revealed to have been searching for a baby for 16 years, as opposed to a teenager, which Aurora would have been at this point in time. Unlike her goons, who Maleficent constantly abuses and treats as pathetic wastes, he serves as her confidant and assistant more so than her lackey, joining her more often than not from scene to scene, and having complete knowledge of her devious plots. He's also second in command, having control over her goons along with her. He shares Maleficent's sadism. When she captures Prince Philip in the cottage, and later when she torments him in his cell, Diablo shows just as much pleasure as Maleficent herself. So Diablo is the name of Maleficent's raven?
Yeah, how about that? Never knew till I Googled
I
it.
didn't know that either. I didn't realize she had a raven.
Yeah, it's always chilling on her shoulder.
Yeah.
It's funny. Two little peas in a pod, though.
Right?
Those two.
Cute.
We have some deities for you. We have Baba Yaga to start this list. Baba Yaga is a popular folkloric figure in Slavic countries who was once venerated in ancient times as a goddess. She is typically depicted as an old hag who lives in a hut in the woods, has chicken feet as its foundation, and Baba Yaga herself flies around in a mortar and pestle. In the tale, Vasilisa the Fair, a young woman, goes into the forest at night. She searches out Baba Yaga to ask for light for her family's cottage. She finds the old hag and impresses her with humility and hard work. The old hag rewards her. So Baba Yaga's role in this story, and in others, is the feared trickster witch who grants blessings to those who prove themselves worthy. In the tale of Vasilisa and Baba Yaga, 3 horsemen are key components. So we assume horses are one of Baba Yaga's animal familiars. But in another version of the tale, Baba Yaga transforms into a crow in the end. A crow fits Baba Yaga's personality, wise and yet a trickster. This makes her a crow goddess of old. Then we have Bran, B-R-A-N, the Welsh raven god. Bran the Blessed is a well-known figure in Welsh mythology as the giant king of the ancient Wales and England. Bran's name translates to crow in Welsh, though some debate its etymology. Bran's sister, Branwen, was married off to a king of Ireland who goes on to mistreat her. When Bran and the men go to rescue his sister, Bran is mortally wounded. He requests for his men to sever his head and to take it to the White Tower in London and point it east, so he could forever guard his people and watch the coastline for foreign invaders. Bran is associated with crows and ravens. The White Tower of London is located where the Tower of London stands today. The ravens keeping watch over the Tower of London are there because of Bran, the raven god. Interesting. I'll have to take a look at that building. Then we have Dhumavati, the Hindu crow goddess. Dhumavati is the Hindu crow goddess of the void, which is the place before time and the place after time ends. She's associated with death and transformation. Many depictions show her on a cremation ground looking like death itself, like decaying teeth, long fingernails, hag-like appearance overall. She carries the death god Yama's horn and sometimes wears a garland of severed heads. Damn, that's a vibe. Moreover, it comes as no surprise that Dhumavati's animal guardian is the crow. Dhumavati is depicted riding a large crow or being pulled in a chariot by 2 blackbirds. Crows are known as scavengers on the battlefield and hence are linked to death gods and goddesses in ancient times.
That's pretty badass. We're going to talk about some more Hindu mythology. There's Shani, the god of justice and karma, who is regularly depicted riding a crow, which serves as his vehicle. And also, crows are also associated with ancestral veneration in Hinduism. Then we have the Morrigan, moving on to Irish Celtic mythology. It's the Morrigan is an Irish Celtic crow goddess who's able to shapeshift. This crow goddess is the daughter of Ernmas, one of the Tuatha De Dananns, and is one of a trinity of deified sisters. So like a sisterhood of deities, maybe? Mm-hmm. Okay. The Morrigan is well known for being a warrior and fate goddess. She will shapeshift into the form of any animal she chooses, including a wolf, an eel, and a crow. In the Ulster cycle, the Morrigan turns into a crow on a few occasions. While she's known for her battle role, there are those who also say she is a fertility goddess and values sovereignty above all. The fact the Morrigan shifts into a crow while on the battlefield shows her dominion over death, as the crow feeds on carrion and turns death into fuel for life. Then we have Nephthys, the goddess of the dead. A pattern emerges with crow and raven gods and goddesses. Crow and ravens have guardianship over the dead. Therefore, many death gods are related to blackbirds. Nephthys, the Egyptian goddess of the dead, is no exception. She too bears the crow as one of her symbols. Nephthys marries Set, the god of disorder. However, Nephthys becomes impregnated by Set's brother and births Anubis, the god of mummification. While Nephthys is mostly depicted as a woman with falcon wings, the crow appears in some places as her companion. She is a goddess of the dead and oversees funerary rites. Then we have Odin, the all-father god of ravens, and this is in Norse and Germanic mythology, and he has dominion over many aspects of life, like war, death, knowledge, healing, writing, royalty, and chaos. Odin appears often as a one-eyed older man wearing a cloak and holding a staff, and is typically flanked by wolves, bears, or ravens. He's credited with the discovery of the Elder Futhark runes. The myth is part of the poetic Edda and tells of Odin hanging upside down from a tree for 9 days. And sacrificing himself, he is given the runes as a divine reward. The Allfather has 2 ravens named Hugin and Munin, their names meaning thought and memory. The ravens are messengers to Odin and bring him information from all 9 realms. Further, Odin is called the, quote, raven god in the Prose Edda. Now moving on to Queen Maeve, which is the fairy queen and crow goddess. It's also spelled Medb, like Medb, and she is an ancient Celtic Irish goddess of sovereignty, and in Irish myth, she's a queen with voracious appetite for wealth and sexual partners. In modern times, she's revered as a goddess of female independence and strength, and did we mention she's also the queen of the Celtic Otherworld, which makes her one of Ireland's fairy queens. When Queen Maeve manifests into the physical, she frequently comes in the form of a crow. In addition, she's depicted with birds, crows, and other small woodland animals, and scholars speculate she may be another aspect of the Morrigan. Now moving on to Morgan Le Fay, or Morgan Le Fay. Scholars and folklorists have noticed the similarities between the Arthurian character and goddess Morgan Le Fay and the Celtic war goddess the Morrigan. One of those similarities is in their names, but also in the fact that they are often accompanied by crows. Morgan Le Fay is mostly known for her role in King Arthur's legend, but it's believed to have first been a goddess of Celtic origin. Because of her connection to magic, shapeshifting, and being a psychopomp guiding Arthur to the afterlife, she also has an inseparable link to the crow. The next one is Hecate, or Hecate. Crows are associated with Hecate as symbols of her dominion over the dead, magic, and transformation due to their connection to the underworld and their ability to act as messengers between the living and spirit realms. While historically, Hecate's primary animal associations were with dogs and polecats, crows and other intelligent corvids became popular symbols in modern interpretations of the goddess, especially within the context of witchcraft and spiritual guidance. Seeing a crow can be interpreted as a sign of her presence, offering guidance or a message, particularly during times of transition or when seeking wisdom. And then in Greek mythology, we have Apollo, the god of prophecy, and Apollo used ravens to send messages and facilitate divination. And then we have Athena. Crows were connected to her, the goddess of wisdom. And then we have Al-Ghurab, an Arabian deity whose idol was in the form of a raven housed in the Kaaba. And then we have Elijah. In the Old Testament, ravens were used by God to provide for the prophet Elijah.
I didn't even look in the Bible.
Right? Yeah, I'm sure there's stuff in there too. Moving on to using crows in your practice and your spell work. You can use them for divination, like watching the direction of flight or the number of crows, like we talked about those rhymes earlier, right?
Play a little counting crows while you meditate.
Exactly. They are used in death work or psychopomp rituals because they're seen as guides between the worlds. You can use them in protection magic, like using crow imagery, like feathers, claws, bones, or statues. I guess like as a ward, like you can use them in different protections and wardings. Use them in dream magic. Crows appear during prophetic dreams or ancestral contact. And then some real world magical correspondences. This is saying air, like we saw in Joseph's book, but also water, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes spirit. And then the planets are Saturn, which represent death and time, or Mercury for communication and trickery, because they are the master tricksters of the bird world. And herbs are often paired with crow magic, like mugwort and yew and wormwood. And then some common tools you can use are crow feathers, skulls, bones, and bells if you would like to mimic their caw.
I love that. I actually created a Crow Book of Shadows page many moons ago. And I think I have crows and snakes familiar pages, and we've done snakes. I shared that one, but this was the only other animal I really connected to. So it's a 2-page spread, and on it I listed their correspondences and hand painted a little watercolor raven surrounded by florals and thistles with a gold leaf dusted sigil. There's a small incantation to use if you would like to call upon raven energy. On the backside are deities of the crow, as well as some superstitions about ravens and the differences we went over earlier. I was trying to be more like not scholarly, scholastic about it, so I wrote out like kingdom, phylum, class, order, all that stuff, and their connections, life magic, mystery of creation, destiny, transformation, mischievousness, alchemy, intelligence, higher perspective, being fearless, audacious, flexible, adaptability, trickster, and manipulative. So I'll include this on I'll scan it in nicely and include it on our Patreon. But you can also see the creation of it over on the Instagram, and I'll include that link too. I really thought this page turned out cute. It was very pretty and simplified.
Beautiful. And I say it all the time, and I'll say it again. I love watching your process. It's your videos of you creating these Book of Shadows pages is just so like,
Thank you.
It's just very relaxing. It's a very relaxing watch. So I urge everybody to go check this out. And definitely go to the Patreon and download it.
Some of the little things I included on here that I don't think we touched on were like the little folklore parts. This says ravens facing the direction of a clouded sun foretell hot weather. A preening raven tells of rain on the way, which is cool. Ravens flying towards each other signify an omen of war. A raven tapping at a window foretells death, probably from Poe.
Yeah.
If a raven is heard croaking near a house, a death is soon to follow. And then
Tickle.
yeah. Oh. If a raven flies around the chimney of an ill person's home, they are doomed to die.
Oh my God. I like that badass bird skull you have on the bottom corner of the...
Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, so I'll be sure to put this over on Patreon.
Okay. All right, so we're going to round out this episode. I also have some bird artwork that I did some years back, not for a Book of Shadows page, but this was actually kind of like inspired by some of the music that me and Avi were writing back in the day. So this piece here, this is titled Bird's Eye View, and Bird's Eye View is actually a song that was written when Avi and I had our band Stella Diora, and we wrote it sometime after the completion of our first EP, which was called A Dosage from Delusional, back in like 2012. So this is that long ago. The music was written as like a backstory to part of this like concept story that we had going on, where the bird is, or the crow rather, is a very prominent and important figure in the story. So in the story, the bird was an extension of a character I had created called Cleodna, and it was based on like an Irish mythology. I did not create the goddess, but I took, the name from that and like kind of like her characteristics. So in Irish mythology, Cleodna is the queen of the banshees of the Tuatha De Danann. And it says Cleodna of Caraglina is the potent banshee that rules as queen over the Seoga, or the fairies, of South Munster or Desmond. Do you hear that? So in some Irish myths, Cleodna is a goddess of love and beauty and the patron of County Cork. She is said to have 3 brightly colored birds, although the one in my story was just like a black crow, who eat apples from an otherworldly tree and whose sweet song heals sickness. So this art piece and the original song Bird's Eye View that we were writing was very heavily influenced by this mythological imagery. So this art piece that I did on top here with the bird and the apples, it was actually a photo manipulation that I had done originally in 2005, and then I decided to like revamp it to fit this like music that we were writing, this like collection of artwork, because it fits so well. So originally it wasn't as dark as the final piece that you see on top. I had like layered in like marble texture and used like Photoshop brushes to darken it up, and then the apples and the branches were all like things that I eventually added to the piece to make it like more steampunk was kind of like the vibe we were going for.
Yeah, I can see. That's
right,
because
because we have like the gears in there, and all the writing all the writing on here, I'm pretty sure those are lyrics from the song. So although there are no apples in this story specifically, they have been used as a symbol of temptation in many stories throughout history to teach lessons to the reader. But the bird in my story influences our main characters to make decisions that they may regret. So some of the lyrics from our song are, when the night falls and you're fixing for what you need, did you notice all the eyes up in the trees? Sweet elixir, every drop you drink it bleeds, a fruit forbidden on the vine. And the sweet elixir talked about in these lyrics is referring to the fountain of youth that the main character in our story finds at the base of this otherworldly tree through means of alchemy and the philosopher's stone. So
how interesting. Even
Even-
before that story ever came out.
right, exactly. So I put a video in here of me and Avi performing the song acoustic live. So I will link that in our hero page if anybody wants to check out our original music. So moving on to some crows and folk spells and lore. So witch bottles sometimes are buried with bird bones to trap curses. In British folk magic, quote, feeding the crows during Samhain to appease the spirits. Crow calls interpreted as a prophecy by wise women or seers, and interesting because the woman in our story for Bird's Eye View, she's like Cleona. She's in mythology this goddess, but in our story we're making her like this like old kind of like haggish kind of witch, and she's kind of like she's using the birds as her sight.
She's foreboding.
Exactly. Here's how to interpret crow calls. So beyond specific myths, folklore provided detailed methods for interpreting the calls and behaviors of crows. For a seer, the context was critical. The number of crows observed was often a key divinatory sign. A common folk rhyme from the British Isles demonstrates this tradition. So 1 for sorrow means bad luck or a sign of sadness. 2 for mirth, good luck or joy. 3 for a wedding means a future marriage or union. 4 for death means obviously a death is coming. Nature of the call means the type of crow call itself was significant. The loud, harsh caw could be a warning, while a softer, more rhythmic call might carry a more nuanced message. And then pay attention to the flight direction. The direction a crow was flying could foretell an event. In ancient Roman augury, a bird divination, a bird flying from the left was a bad omen, while one flying from the right was good. This practice likely influenced Germanic traditions. And then lastly, the location of the call. Where the crow was calling from also was meaningful. A crow calling from a high, prominent perch could signal an important, far-reaching message, while one near a home might relate to domestic matters.
I have a little bit of dreams from Bersedia, so we'll
Okay.
do her real quick and then we'll wrap this and put a bow on it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you dream about a crow, according to Bersedia Ryan, the Ultimate Dictionary of Dream Language, do not attempt the responsibilities of another person and be firm in your refusal to compromise your time. Okay?
Hey.
All right. Let me put a little bookmark. Hang on. I'm trying to bookmark all the ones we've done.
Right. Yo, that's a
and
lot.
then let's do Raven, Ravine, Ravioli, Raven.
I want to dream about ravioli.
If you dream about a raven, do everything necessary to keep a persistent, nasty person from dropping in on you whenever they feel like it. These visits ruin precious moments in your life. This individual's behavior will only get worse as time goes by.
Oh, can we read ravioli just for shits and gigs? Because I'm all about dreaming of that.
Totally. Okay. Within 3 days, if you dream about ravioli, within 3 days, a situation will occur that deserves a positive answer from you. You must also make a point of demonstrating love to others by making small gestures of appreciation, like ravioli, make them some food. You will be going through a 2-day cycle where others will also be showing love toward you.
So will they make me ravioli?
I guess so.
Yo, food is my love language. If I love you, I'm gonna cook for you.
Ravioli. This book has quite the plethora of words you can
Yo,
pick from.
Your book is dog-eared to all shit. We've gone through the ringer with this book.
I only started tabbing them this season.
That's amazing. Wait, so those tabs are only from this season, or you backlogged the tags from
No, I should go
seasons 1
back
and 2?
though, huh?
That's pretty cool. That's cool to kind of like visually see how much we've actually covered,
Uh-huh. Yep.
Right.
And
Yeah.
even we don't even hit dreams every episode
No,
either.
we don't. Yeah, you're right. We don't do it every single
Forget about
episode.
Brasidia
It's a nice little tasty morsel to fill some space every now and then. And Brasidia's usually she's quick and to the point. So, she keeps it short and sweet. I like it. So in conclusion, as we close our circle today, we're left with the reminder that crows in the practical magic universe are more than background symbols. These dark, feathered messengers carry the weight of omen, transformation, and ancestral guidance. Just as they perch on the edge between the ordinary and the mystical, they remind us that magic often reveals itself in liminal spaces, between life and death, past and future, seen and unseen. In folklore, crows have long been associated with prophecy, cleverness, and the ability to walk between the worlds. Within the Owens family story, they echo those same themes, foretelling tragedy, calling attention to truth, and acting as companions when the veil grows thin. Whether we see them as harbingers or helpers, crows remind us to pay attention, to honor the signs that arrive in unexpected forms, and to trust that even in shadow, there's wisdom waiting to be found. So the next time you hear the caw of a crow outside your window, think of the Owens women, think of the magic their feathered friends threaded through their lives, and ask yourself, would you befriend a crow? That's all we have for you guys today.
If you'd like to help support the show, you can visit us at patreon.com/Magnolia Street Podcast, where you can vote about what we talk about next. You can see our monthly calendars and even get a shout out on the show. You can grab our show notes, our after hours posts, and curated playlists. You're able to join our private communities over on Facebook and Discord for live streams, watch parties, and other chats. You can unlock bonus videos and bloopers, meditations, old vault footage, spells, and ritual content, plus exclusive demos of our original music. But if Patreon's not your thing, you can still support us for free by rating our show on Spotify or Apple Podcast and leave us a review. Share us on Instagram and check out our merch through the link in our bio. But again, that's patreon.com/Magnolia Street Podcast.
If you guys have any of your own stories or crow sightings, or if you've befriended the crows and you want to share how you were able to do that or what your experience is like, we would love to know about it. Did the bird shit on your car if you forgot to feed them for a day? We want to know it. So send your crow stories to magnoliastreetpodcast@gmail.com. Kristina, what do we have coming up next week?
We are going to be doing the last installment of our elemental series, that fifth and final element of spirit, just in time for spooky season. I also wanted to ask you, are we still accepting submissions for spooky stories for our wrap-up, our season 3 wrap-up? So send those as well to our email if you want to share your spooky story and have it read by us.
Absolutely.
And have little music put behind it and sound effects and our chitter chatter and cackling.
I love that. I know, remember when we did our nautical episode and I was like, oh, I'm going to read from that One Night in Salem book, and like I recorded it. I never edited it because I was like, I don't have the fucking time. So I might actually, instead of putting it on the Patreon, I might actually add it to that.
Cool.
episode,
Okay.
So we have some, additional stories for it.
All right.
Yeah. And guys, don't forget to download our new EP, Welcome to the Neighborhood, the Magnolia Street Sessions Volume 1. You can listen to that on Spotify, iTunes, or you can support us directly if you download it over at the Stinas of magnoliastreet.bandcamp.com. And check all our sources for today over on our hero page. I link all that down below. Is there anything else that I am missing?
No, ma'am. Let's go eat some food. Oh,
Yeah, but real quick, before I go, I found the sticker that I was talking about before.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
How
my friend
pretty.
Penny sent, and she said her friend Eric made the sticker. They befriended the crows something near their building by feeding them. They were feeding them like fancy food from the health food store.
Oh, wow.
So the crows started bringing back gifts as a thank you. So I guess
Wow.
the sticker says, "I got you something."
That is so cool. I love that
Isn't that
design.
very pretty?
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks, Penny, for sending me that. She
We got
sent me
such nice listeners. Man, they're sweet.
Really do.
They're too good to us.
Who was sending us a package?
Practically magic.
Practically Magic from TikTok and
Practically
Instagram.
magical?
Practically Magical. Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you for sending us that. I can't wait to receive it. That's very sweet.
We'll have to do an unboxing when it
We
gets
will.
here.
Absolutely. All right. With that said, we will see you guys back next week for an all new episode. Every Friday, new episodes. I'm Justina,
I'm Kristina.
and we'll see you next time.
At the house on Magnolia Street, would you